Hey everyone, this is Patricia. Hope you guys have been doing well. I've just been really busy with schoolwork and internship, which is why I haven't been posting as much lately. But I'm sure that you already knew that if you follow me on social media or if you have checked out my Old School Lane blog. If you haven't yet, then please subscribe over to this YouTube channel and check out my social media outlets on Facebook and Twitter, and check out my blog oldschoollane.net. So, in honor of Season 2A of The Owl House being complete and going through its hiatus until probably around winter or spring, episodes 6 through 10 have been posted up on Disney+, and what you're about to listen to are the discussions of those episodes from Arun Mehta from The Arun Mehta Show and I, from Arun and Patricia. For those who don't know, Arun and Patricia is a weekly podcast series where we discuss about various pop culture news, and we have been watching Season 2 of The Owl House, as well as Season 1 of Monsters at Work. So I just want to let you know there are major spoilers ahead. If you have not seen Season 2 of The Owl House, then please go check it out on Disney+, Disney Now, Hulu, or wherever that you can to support the official release. If you have not listened to our discussions of episodes 1 through 5, then go check out Arun and Patricia, or check out the annotation or the link down below so you can be able to catch up. But if you have caught up, then sit back, relax, and enjoy.
All right, everybody, it's time to give us our thoughts on Season 2, Episode 6 of The Owl House, and this is the episode where we finally get to see the Golden Guard's face. So.
Yay! And we kind of knew that this was going to happen, considering about like all the trailers that was showing off the Golden Guard's face, but yeah, there was a lot more to it that we didn't expect. Like, it first opens up with the leaders of the Coven, which we did see in the trailer, but we saw like Emperor Bello saying like, I'm going to show you what my plans are. And we got to see the Titan's head on Earth. It's like, okay, now he wants to have Earth and, Bonesboro kind of like merge together so he can take over everything.
Yeah. There's a meme that's currently going on Twitter right now, and it's like, like Patrick Star when he's like saying, we take X and we put it somewhere else, and like his Emperor Bello's face, like, okay, this is the plan. We take the Titan's head and we put it in Connecticut. It's like, guys, parliamentary democracy seems like a good option right now. But I mean, here's the thing, like, it seems all these Coven heads now are like, they are complicit in all of this, from the sounds of it. So, like, obviously I know we're going to the next episode to go, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of fans saying, well, what about this particular Coven head? We'll talk about that next week, if we get to that point. But, mind you, in the cold open, there's so much to digest. Like, so, we've met the Coven heads, we've like seen what they are, and then, obviously, we got Bellows turning into that Wendigo thing, like, that's a horrible monster, and things like that, which, let me say, as someone who's, like, read up on the legend of the Wendigo recently, I have to say, I feel a bit more confident about this guy getting killed, pretty much, so, I'll tell you more about it later on, but, but then also we learn that this Golden Guard apparently is, the nephew of, Uncle Bellows. So that's the reason why, so nepotism pretty much is taking part in the Emperor's Coven at the moment, and so, there's so much digesting all of that. Also, the reason why he turns into that monster is because he doesn't have enough, Palismen energy to kind of, keep it at bay. So, maybe he's cursed? I don't know. Or, we don't really know what his form is. Really,
no, we don't.
We don't know much about him at all. So maybe it's just the fact that maybe that is him, and that he's been using Palismen energy to kind of maybe he's kind of in Help I'm a Fish, when they take that, when the fish drink that serum stuff, and they get more intelligent because of it. Maybe it's that. So, but who knows? So then we get into the intro, and it's Luz is obviously struggling to get any information out of this mouse now. So he's just taking a nap in his little cage, which he's got going for him. So she's that, but then Ida walks in and says, "Oh well, if you want to stick there by that hamster cage, either that you can go try and find what your Palismen is." And so she immediately gets dressed and wants to go to Hexside to go to that. And interesting though is that Ida now seems to be taking more of an interest in helping out the kids at Hexside.
Yeah, good, considering that she started off with, not going to Hexside because, the establishment, makes you go into one particular coven. And now I, as the greatest witch in the world, don't even have to stick around with any other covens. And also the fact that she was expelled from Hexside because of all the stuff that she did. But now she's very open to even helping out the kids getting their own Palismens, which is awesome.
Yeah. So, we get to the point where they now have actually decided to do a new initiative because apparently the materials that are used to create Palismens apparently now are very rare to find. So,
Yes.
they've now done an adoption scheme, which it sounds kind of cool. So, they go kneel at these Palismens and say what they want to kind of achieve, and they end up getting their respective Palismens because of it. So, mind you, they are full of memes and jokes, I have to say. Like, there we are. When Willow getting a B as a Palisman is like, yeah, of course. Yeah. And some of them do bear striking relations to Pokemon. That's all I say.
Yeah, I guess that is kind of true. I mean, considering that Dana herself is a big Pokemon fan, it's not too much of a surprise. And yes, so Willow gets a bee, and Basha gets a crab.
Where's this
Gus
giant enemy crab?
Oh, jeez. Gus gets a chameleon, and some of the others, they get like a sloth. One of them gets like a little deer. So yeah, they're all like really, really cute. And then when Luz comes in and says, "I want to be a witch," and then none of them come out, and then Principal Bump is like, "Well, you have to be more specific." And so then she says, "I want to get home to my mom," and then nobody comes in, and so she feels really devastated that she's not able to get any of the Palismen that are right over there.
Yeah, and like, I guess you could say that at this point, maybe Luz is going through like an existential crisis. Maybe, like, she's like, who am I? Like, why do I want to be a witch? Like, I've always been saying I wanted to be one, but never kind of asked myself why. So
That's actually a really good point, considering that thing that Basha brought up earlier is like, can you do any magic outside of the human realm? And then Gus was asking, can you still practice magic when you're back home? And she can't. We saw in the last episode of season 1 that when she tried to use a glyph against Lilith, it crumbled into dust. So yeah, when she gets back into the human realm, her powers will be completely useless.
Yeah. So, actually, that'd be interesting to see. Like, maybe at some point, maybe she might end up back in the human realm, but ends up having to try and go back to the boy in the house. I don't know. Like, actually, it's interesting for like Amity as well. Like, she won't be able to use magic in the Earth realm. So, if this
Well, I mean, we
back,
saw Lilith do magic.
did she?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then I guess. Oh yeah, because they can actually do it. That's why I don't think she. Obviously, Luz can't. But yeah, so there was. We get to that point, and then Luz returns home. She kind of has like a massive thing, but then realizes that one of the Palismens is actually commandeered themselves into Luz's backpack. So she ends up having to try and take it back. And then, well,
Dave, right before we discuss about that, let's talk about Principal Bump for a second.
Oh yeah, actually, we need to mention this. So, yeah, I made up a theory last week that Principal Bump, that thing on his head might have been actually controlling him, and he might actually be Philip Witterbane, and maybe a relative of Philip Witterbane. I was badly wrong with this. And I admit that, and I somewhat apologize for it as well, because we actually get a reveal that this Palisman is he's actually blind and is actually helping him see. Which is so, like, that is... I'm actually kind of happy that actually that ended up being the case, rather than, like, this thing just being like a head crab. So, like, I in that way I'm kind of happy, but at the same time I feel bad that I ever made up that theory. So, if anyone was offended by that theory, then I apologize.
You don't have to worry about it, considering that it was a pretty interesting theory. I mean, we never got to see what Principal Bump's ears look like. So, I mean, that was, possible that maybe it's just the reason why he's covering it is because they're human ears. But no, it just turned out that was part of his Palisman, and he's rocking this really long hair.
Yeah. And by the way, the Palismens don't seem to like, be necessarily for animals. Like, this thing's like a devil. Like, that lives on the top. So, I mean, I guess, you can have a Palisman for anything, I guess.
Possible.
Yeah. I bet there's someone who's like a troll, and like, they have like, I don't know, maybe they have like, like a certain like object like on top of their Palisman. It's like,
I
it's
mean,
like,
from what I've seen, it looks like creatures. So I mean, even though it is like
yeah.
a devilish thing, it looks like it's a type of animal. So I think only animals would probably like be suffice. So that's
Well,
why we kind
a
of stuck
devil's
with
not necessarily an
monsters.
animal. It's like it's a mythical creature. So
Yeah, and
like,
I guess the Golden Guards, kind of staff also kind of like works in a very similar way. So there's that.
well, let's get to that, shall we? So Luz is asleep amongst all these Palismens, and because she's trying to figure out basically maybe using the Palismens to help her figure out where she wants to go in life. And she decides, oh, I'll try to be a bounty hunter, but she goes, she can't do magic there, and maybe she can be like a really famous magician, but she can't do card tricks in the human realm either. And so she goes through like all these ideas, and then she starts to drift away, and then next thing she's woken up by a jolt, and it turns out that the Golden Guard is trying to steal the Palismens. So we get to that bit, and so the fight scene ensues, and they crash the ship, and so it ends up being actually it didn't actually crash on purpose. There's a giant monster that's controlled by what's the name of that character? I keep forgetting. What's her name?
Which character?
You know, the tiny character with like the octopus for a face.
Oh, Kikimora.
Kikimora, okay, yeah, sorry, I keep forgetting that. So, she's basically sent a monster after the Golden Guard, and has made up this story that he's died. So, and used like the monster to like to see that he's been eaten up and that. So, sorry, not beaten up by that, but obviously says that the ship has crashed because of the monster, and he's ended up dead because of it. So they all think he's dead, and then the Golden Guard and Luz actually managed to escape and have decided now to work together. And so then they realize that Kikimora is going to basically take these Palismen and take them off to Emperor Balos to be consumed. So they hatch this scheme to try and get them back, but amongst all of that, Luz actually takes the Golden Guard staff, and we realise that the Golden Guard can't naturally do magic either. So
Yeah, so going back into the whole Harry Potter parallels again, there's a term for witches and wizards who can't do magic. They're called squibs. And for some reason or another, they have difficulties with even learning the basics of magic. So, from what we were told by the Golden Guard, by the way, his name is Hunter now. So, what we were told by Hunter is that, his family, was like really struggling with like, magic and dark magic and various things. And then Emperor Bellos took him in. So, technically, they're not related. Or maybe they are related. Maybe he's just like a far off member of the family. Who knows? But anyway, so he's like saying that he can't do magic without this staff. So, and then Luz kind of like helps him out a little bit, especially when we learn that Kikimora is like trying to kill the Golden Guard because she hears about that nepotism thing about like, oh, they're related, and then she kind of like wants to be the top of Emperor Belos's side. So I guess, there's, she sends like this weird looking finger dragon thing to go after them. So now they have to figure out a way so that they can be able to not only rescue the Palismen from Kikimora, but also to, work together so that they can be able to escape. And it's actually really nice to see both of them work together, even though we kind of knew that they weren't going to end up being friends at the end. It's kind of like an Aang and Zuko situation where they have like two different sides that they have to follow, but they work together in just this one moment.
yeah, one of the things interesting though is that I don't think this whole angst between the two is going to last. I think looking at what's happened in this episode, I think Hunter is going to end up betraying Emperor Balos. I think, and will end up kind of going off on his own, probably.
I wouldn't be surprised either, considering of the experience that he and Luz had together, and he was really close to even discussing about like this wild magic and how it was like the ancient ways of the glyphs from like hundreds of thousands of years ago, and how it was dating back to when magic was like really old, and he was about to tell some really interesting information, and then he's like, no, I can't tell you that. It was restricted for a reason. So apparently Palismen are filled with wild magic, and wild magic is considered to be very dangerous. And he's trying to, help Emperor Bellos because Palismens are the only thing that is keeping whatever that's going on with him, contained. So, but at the same time, Palismens with wild magic are dangerous. So it's like, there's something that Emperor Bellos is not telling us.
I think it's bullshit. I think it is, and because I mean, also on top of that as well, like look at what he's doing in regards to what he led on with the Coven heads. He's pretty much admitting he wants to pretty much stick the Titan head on Earth, and do God knows what. So this guy is deranged. I still have the theory that he's going to create. I think we've had seen the influence of video games in this series, and I am thinking that this is what Emperor Balor is doing. He's trying to do what they did in Half-Life in Black Mesa, where they ended up accidentally creating a Resonance Cascade scenario and ended up morphing both worlds together, or creating a giant rift between the two. So I kind of thinking that this is what's probably end up going to happen when he turns on that portal, maybe for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many questions that were brought up in this episode. It was just built with lore, and also, it kind of ends in a very sweet way with Ida walking all the way over to a secret part of the forest where there was like an inkling of a tree that can be able to have Luce make her own palisman. I mean, when we first saw the Bat Queen coming in and gathering the palismens and making sure that they were safe, and then we saw the little red cardinal, and then it was saying, "Oh, you know where to go. You finally found who you want to be with. When then go." And a lot of people thought it was going to be Luce, that was going to be Luce's palisman, but no, it's actually going to be Hunter's palisman.
Yeah. So yeah, this is going to be. Then gives me the reason why I think I think Hunter is going to eventually betray the Empress Coven. I think, and or maybe who knows? Maybe he might end up faking his death, maybe faking his own death, maybe, and that's how he's going to get out. So.
Yeah. So. There's also another thing that we need to bring up is about Kikimora figuring out that not only was the Golden Guard alive, but also that he was the one responsible for the fight and stealing away helping to steal the dragon that Luce was able to help rescue the Palismen. So they thought that Kikimora thought that the Golden Guard was attacked, but then he was killed, and then Emperor Bellows thought you lost the Palismen or you didn't bring any with you. I mean, he didn't even know that there was like a whole slew of Palismen that were just right over there, and the whole situation with Kikimora saying, but sir, the Golden Guard did bring you a whole bunch of Palismen. It's just that they got lost. But I mean, he probably didn't even know again, that because they were masked up, because the Luce and Hunter did that great spell involving with the sleeping mist. So again, she probably thought that they just went away after these two mysterious people attacked her. So that will definitely be brought up when she saw the scratch on his head with after that she attacked him. So yeah, there's definitely going to be some cases in which oh sire, the Golden Guard is not to be trusted because he was the one who attacked me and set off the Palisman free, when in reality he should have given it to you. He's not loyal. It's yeah, there's some things that are going to be happening later on in this season.
Well, one thing that'd be interesting to see is that maybe Kikimora and Hunter have another fight, and maybe the Emperor's Coven themselves kind of end up splitting into factions. And it's kind of oh hey, what they did to Hunter is not right. He's the person we're supposed to be following. Well, Kikimora is the person who's responsible for X, Y, and Z. And maybe it ends up maybe the whole Empress Coven ends up falling apart with Emperor Bellows unable to do anything because he keeps morphing into that monster. The whole Empress Coven could just just implode. So and that actually ties into basically our next episode, where we're going to finally meet the members of the Resistance.
Yes, so we are going to meet up with one of the leaders of the Coven, who just so happens to be a crucial person for Ida's past, and discussing about, hey, we're going to have a resistance against Emperor Bellows. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this episode.
Yeah. It is who ends up in the Resistance. I think I can see. I mean, obviously, I don't know. Will it end up being a situation where there ends up being kind of resistance? There's that's going to be the underlying story of Ida, and this head of the Bard Coven, organizing all of that, in the background, and then maybe lose Amity and everybody else, kind of ends up going on their own adventure, just stop Balos or something like that. I don't know, or maybe stopping what's going on with the realm. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But all I know is that a lot of information that was really crucial to the lore of the story was revealed. A lot more questions that we have building up. It needs to be answered, I hope, soon. And I'm really also excited to see what Luce's new Palisman is going to look like.
Yeah, it's like, well, they're teasing that, aren't they? Like, I think they're probably going to end up revealing that at the very end of the series.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think, mind you, the one thing I don't want them to do is, like, we're going to have, like, a lot of questions, but at the same time, we don't want, like, them all answered all at once. Like, save some stuff for season 3. Like...
Yeah. Also, I'm really upset that Amity wasn't able to choose her Palisman. I guess, she was left home
I
because
have
her
a
mom...
feeling, you know what, I was chewing over this before. You know her new necklace?
Yes.
Yeah, it looks like the shape of the moon. And do you remember in the trailer we had like a character who had like a moon for a face?
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm wondering. But maybe let's end it at that, just to give everyone a chance to walk away with those thoughts in their minds.
Sounds good.
Let's talk about The Owl House, Season 2, Episode 7, Ida's Requiem. And, is there not going to be an episode where no one cries? Oh man, but mind you, this is a necessary episode. We haven't seen Ida go massively through the motions right now, and given the fact that we have Ida now having the prospect of potentially not having Luz around anymore because she wants to get back to the human realm, but now we're left with the potential that King no longer wants to be in the Owl House because he wants to he wants to try and search for his dad again. So there's that going on. So Lewis has the idea of booking both of them into the Grand Prix, and where the winner of that Witches Grand Prix will basically be able to get onto Boiling Isles television, and they'll be broadcast the entire Boiling Isles, and then King will be able to announce that he's looking for his dad, and be able to try and send a message to him through the magic of television. So
yes.
So he is, yeah, but mind you, that's not the whole kind of like conversation of it all. So there is other things that we're going to go into at the very end of the episode. But Ida is pretty down about the fact that she's going to be all on her own in the Owl House again with only Hooty to keep her company. So but then while she's in the middle of that, she finds her old, is it a guitar that she's got?
It's a lute.
It's a lute. Okay, so she finds her old lute, which she used to be able to play, and when she plays it, she suddenly finds that she's able to do magic again, only to find out the curse is messing with her magic again. So
yeah, that is a bit of a problem, considering that she's still feeling the effects of doing her magic, and we kind of knew that she wasn't able to do like her other spells, and she's only been relying on potions for her to defend herself. So she's hoping that maybe by playing this instrument and using the bard magic, she'll be able to see if she can be able to do it. But no, it's the magic is not there, and the curse has definitely affected all the items around her.
Yeah. Have you noticed though that also one thing that I've noticed as well, did you notice that Albert seems to be hanging around more with Luz than he seems to be hanging around with Ida at this point?
Yeah, I've been noticing it a lot too. I mean, you could probably argue that, Luz is really getting stronger with her magic, and, she was using Albert to help train for this race because she's not 100% sure what she wants to carve with her Palismen wood that we saw in the last episode. So I guess she's using more of Albert in the meanwhile.
I don't know. Like, I'm starting to wonder. Like, again, I don't know what she's going to end up carving. Like, there is, by the way, some suggesting that it might be the bird that Dana Terrace has on her Instagram profile.
Oh, you mean like the little bluebird?
Yeah, the little bluebird. It's I can't remember exactly what it is. It's maybe it might be that. Some people are suggesting, but who knows? Like maybe she might end up carving something, and then maybe Ida ends up taking that, and then she ends up with Albert. I don't know.
Ooh, maybe. So. Or maybe it'll be an otter, because we know that Luz loves otters.
That could be a thing too. So I don't know. It's kind of funny. Like I was thinking, like what would be my Palismen? Like I don't know whether I'd have like a fox, or I think if I'd ever have like I don't know, like I like Remy from Ratatouille. I don't know if I'd have him as a Palismen.
Then that'll be like a little tiny mouse.
Yeah. So like it's a rat actually, not a mouse.
So. Oh yeah, that's right. Well then, yeah, definitely an otter for me if I were to choose a Palismen.
So, anyway, moving on with the story. So, Ida is out, basically drinking her sorrows away, and she's talking about funny for like from an apple blood carton, which is really inconsistent because it's like they're suggesting that apple blood has like has like alcoholic content in it, but then you see it like in a juice box and like in being drunk at Hexside. So like there's no
I mean, I
consistency.
guess it's like, I guess it's like apple cider. It's like, you either drink like the regular apple cider, which is like the juice, or is it like the hard apple cider, which has the alcohol in it? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I take
I
it that maybe the reason why it's in a juice box is because maybe she doesn't want to get too, overly drunk, and so she gets like the kiddie version because maybe she doesn't have the money to pay for the tab, or maybe she's just there because she's just really depressed.
Or maybe it's like do you remember like when 4Kids used to like censor loads of stuff like in anime shows? Maybe it's probably maybe Disney kind of like said no, you can't have a in a wine glass or anything like that. Put a juice box in there because it's that's what you have to put in. I don't know.
Or
if,
like in old cartoons when you have like characters dress up as cowboys and they always get like milk as opposed to like whiskey.
Yeah, maybe that's probably why it was done. That's all I can assume. But so anyway, that's regardless of the story. So she comes out because she finds out a wild witch has been captured by the Emperor's Coven to be reintroduced into society, which I think is going to have a really disturbing twist at the very end of this episode. But she goes out and she basically tries to stop it, and she ends up punching a guy in the face, which totally took us all by surprise. It's like,
Yeah.
Is this, mind you, like, that's an interesting thing. Like, is this a sign that the show's getting more violent? In a way?
I mean, Dana Terrace did say that she was going to up the ante when it came to the show, so I guess violence is one of them?
Yeah. Someone gonna get shot soon? Like, we know how fast this show goes.
I mean, there hasn't been any introductions of guns, but you never know with this show, to be quite honest.
Mind you, like, I don't know, like, funny enough, like, I've been trying to keep hold of, like, the laws and everything like that, because, you have, like, you have, like, all the covens and everything like that, and they have, like, their own particular powers and stuff like that,
Yeah.
but also they have their own weaknesses as well. So, for example, like, you have, like, Darius, who's the Abomination Coven head, like, he has the aspects of a shapeshifter, and the way that you defeat him is basically by decapitating him. So, like, maybe we're going to see the introduction of swords or sharp objects. Maybe in the regards to that, maybe to that, and then also with what's the name of like the head of the Beast Coven?
Everwolf.
Everwolf, yeah. Like, he seems to have the aspects of a werewolf, and the only thing that beats him is silver bullets. So maybe we're going to see the introduction of a gun. I don't know. Like, it's maybe there's a possibility this show could get pretty violent at the very end of it. I don't know. So
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we'll basically take the season 1 finale and just amp it up.
Yeah, maybe. So, we get to the point where Ida's gonna basically get a comeuppance in regards to challenging the Emperor's Coven, but then they're stopped by some really soothing music, which is being done by.
So we have a group of bards. Yes.
Yeah, which are known as the Bats, who are the
Yes.
the bards against the throne, and so they start playing music, and all shenanigans start going on, and so you think that they defeated the Emperor's Coven by marching them off to their own music, but they managed to cover their ears, and that stops the music, which is like, oh wow, that's a pretty effective way of like stopping that magic. So they didn't realize that you need an exit strategy to actually when you do these types of things, which you would normally think of when you're doing pretty badass stuff like this. But Ida, thankfully, gets them all into the sewer and gets them out of the city. So that's her saving the day. And
so we do get to see a weakness for the bards, kind of like in the last episode where we do get the 2 episodes ago where we saw the weakness of the illusionists, where if you don't pull off an illusion very well, you can easily be captured. So I guess for a bard's weakness, if you cover your ears, then you won't be affected by the spells.
Yeah, well, we're seeing a lot of weaknesses in in all the covens. So for example, there's the Oracle one as well. It has to be controlled by certain stones, and if you crush the stones, then you can't really like talk to people anymore. And so,
Right.
the communication is down. And then with the Abomination, it seems that, every time you slice and dice an Abomination, apparently it starts to fall apart. So,
Right.
so we're starting to see strengths and weaknesses in all the covens from what we can see, and all the tracks. So that's interesting to see how. One thing I'm interested to see is it will make the fight sequences more interesting. Do you remember in when we saw all the fights in Avatar, between the earth, the wind, and the fire and water and everything like that. And it had interesting dynamics to it, how it all they all cancelled each other out in some ways, and in different aspects, and made the fights more interesting. I'm hoping that's what's going to do. The fact that you have even more introduced in, maybe the fights that we see in here could probably even be, the duels that we see could even be more interesting than some of the Avatar ones that we've seen.
Yeah, that should be really interesting. And I also really like the direction that they went with Avatar in terms of their strengths and weaknesses, where we got to know that the strength of waterbending is more powerful around nighttime with the moon, and in the sun for the firebenders, where they get their strength because of the heat of the sun. And with airbending, where it's a little bit more of a defense kind of thing. Earthbending is more physical. So yeah, I definitely do like that, and I hope that we get more of that with the extra covens, like seeing the weakness of the construction, or seeing the weakness of the beast coven, or seeing the weakness of all the other ones. I'm really curious about all where we get to see more of it later on in the series.
Mm-hmm. So we were introduced originally to the head of the Bard Coven, but so we didn't really get too acquainted. But we now find out that the leader of the Bards Against the Throne is actually the leader of the Bard Coven herself. Themselves, I should say. Yeah. By the way, apologies, guys. Morgan Terry also apologized for this as well, but we may accidentally misuse pronouns here. So do apologize for that in advance. But so we find out who this person is, and it turns out that the person who's leading the Bards Against the Throne is Rain themselves. So,
well, there you go. And I think that with Rain and Ida having a backstory where there used to be old friends, and Ida used to help Rain with their confidence, and then eventually Rain started doing some more research about the Emperor's plans around the time when they were a teacher of the Bards Coven. And so then eventually they climbed up into the ladder where they themselves became the leader. And so Rain decided to take advantage of this by, not only knowing the plans of Emperor Bellos, saying, okay, this is what my plan is going to be. I'm going to use all of the witches and get them in their respective covens so that we can have enough power for the Day of Unity. And so Rain was against this, and so they decided to put together this rebellious group, which one of them, by the way, was the one who wrote the fan fiction about the vegetables. Mm-hmm. And so Ida decides to help them because Ida is feeling emptiness syndrome. I mean, Ida has come a long way since episode 1, where she was just this independent, rebellious witch who didn't really care about anybody. But now that she's become more of a mother figure for Luce and King, and she was worried about Luce leaving her because, she's working on finding about the portal to get home. And then when, throughout the episode, King was mentioning about how he wants to use this contest so that he can be able to be on TV to find his dad. And he was about to say something about, I want to tell Ida something, and we don't know what it is until later on. So Ida is like, you know what? I mean, I don't, they're essentially going to be having their own lives without me. So why not pair up with my old friend so that we can be able to take down Emperor Bellos and free off the witches who have not been in covens.
Yeah. So you could say that she becomes an agent of chaos in all of this, which she describes herself as. So she comes up with the plans of trying to free all the wild witches that they're gathering up and getting them out of the city. And so I think we only saw one instance of this. I mean, I think it's implied that they did this multiple times, from what I can see.
They probably did, because there were 3 raids that they were going to do, and they did all 3 of them. So I don't know if they did multiple ones, but I think so far they did the 3, and I'm sure that they were going to do more had things not turned for the worse for them.
Yeah, so things do turn for the worse for them, so they're lured into a trap by 2 of the coven heads, and so pretty much 3 of the people who are in the bats group who are captured and sent back to the conformatorium, and the only people who are left are basically Rain and Ida. at this point. And so Rain, in a last-ditch attempt to get rid of two of the Coven heads, decides to use Ida's curse to try and imprison them in in this dark abyss. So, but whilst they're in the midst, by the way, the
not just like trap them, kill them.
Yeah.
Because we saw what happened with the plant, and we saw what happened with the piece of paper when Ida was trying to play the music. He was intending on not only killing the two Coven heads so that Emperor Belos would delay his plan for the Day of Unity, but
well, not do it at all. That's the point. So they were lost the Coven heads, so therefore they couldn't do anything. So,
exactly, but not only that, but they were willing to sacrifice their lives for this.
Yeah,
and
you know
Ida
what? I'm kind of glad that didn't happen because, you remember when in Escaping Expulsion, when Alador suggested that Amity Blight might make a good Coven head one day.
Yes.
I was expecting, at one point I was thinking, Darius is gonna die, because they're gonna kill him off in this instance, and then that's gonna propel Amity to be the head of the Coven. I know it sounds bizarre, but it's kind of or maybe, I don't know, maybe even Alador might have even become it, I don't know. But,
I mean, Darius has some beef with Alador. I don't know why, but Darius does not like Alador's designs of the Abomination soldiers.
Yeah, probably because he can do Abomination naturally, and maybe Alador's more mechanical with it. Maybe.
I guess that's true, yeah.
Yeah. So,
but it's kind of hilarious and ironic that Darius would be the head of the Abominations, considering he doesn't like to get himself dirty.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. But mind you, his whole hair's Abomination. So,
I don't know what to tell you, but yeah, I just find it's dude, you're working with this giant goop monster, and you don't like getting dirty with mud. It's okay, sure.
I don't know, maybe Abomination goo is probably different. I'm not too sure.
I don't know.
Anyway. So basically they play. By the way, the whole sequence of them playing their music and trying to curse the forest that they're in. That whole thing is beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they knocked it out of the park doing that whole thing. And
the music was amazing as well. It matched so well with the visuals.
Yeah, but we also get to the point where they themselves not only are they cursing the forest, but they're cursing themselves at the same time. So they could literally kill themselves doing this. So yes. Ida says she wants to go through with it anyway, and then but while it's going on, the photograph of her. King and Lou's Grom falls out of her hair, and Rain catches a glimpse of it, and she basically and they say that oh wait, you've got kids. It's oh well, they're kind of not my kids, Ida goes, and then Rain says, no, you need to go, and you need to be supported of them, and then we'll find another way of defeating them together. But while saying that, they get captured by Darius, and. But then there's this really heartbreaking moment where Ida is attaching herself to the tree to try and stop her from being dragged in, and she tries to keep hold of Rain, but Rain says no, I don't like having an audience, and Rain lets go of Ida and gets captured by the Coven. But mind you, she does fight him off. Which is pretty cool, but then the buzzkill of the episode, Kikimora, jumps in and basically ends up, and then we find out that basically these things they're putting on their arms, they're effectively this is, I guarantee everybody, this is some Orwellian shit here. It really is. The Kikimora is using these little patches that are on people's arms and are using them basically to control them. Or capture them, or whatever. That's some disturbing. And mind you, I can see that playing out. And I can see imagine if there's a whole fight, and you've got Luz, Gus, Willow, Amity. I could see Kikimora holding down all the other witches, and then just having a one-on-one fight with Luz, and this whole thing's just gripping. I can see it. The whole thing, but but putting that aside, so that happens. Ida escapes and gets back to the Grand Prix, and to find that unfortunately Luz has not managed to win it, and she comes fifth. in it,
Yeah,
and
and
but
Gavin was the one who won, by the way.
yeah, right, yeah. So, what happens is that, obviously, King is really upset about it, but Ida decides to pull out a scroll, which is like her phone, and says, you know what, no one watches the crystal balls anyway, streaming is where it's at. So she live streams on her Pentagram channel, account that she has, King saying, giving a message out to his father, and that's watched by everybody all over the Boiling Isles, including a particular character. And let's talk about this guy for a second. This character, who apparently is living in some kind of like traveler thing or something like that. Like he looks a lot like King, but we're not too sure if he's actually his dad or not.
Yeah, we don't know. Like, we don't know if it's his father. We don't know if it's a family member or maybe like part of his kind. I mean, it just definitely looks like King with the eyes and the shape of the head and the horns. He's just a lot bigger with like wings and stuff like that. So yeah, he definitely has like he's like has like a traveling cart, and it's close over to the Boiling Isles, which means it's not like in a faraway place or even in like another land. So he's clearly watching this, and he sees that King is making this post on Pentagram, and so maybe he'll play into a later episode. We're not sure, but yes, we do have that little clip of possible foreshadowing of what's going to happen in the future. But the one thing that I do appreciate about this moment with the whole Ida rushing over to help Rain as well as Luz doing the race is I'm glad they didn't do the cliche two-sided story in which, number one, Ida has to miss out Luz's race, and maybe Luz won and she was disappointed that Ida wasn't able to watch her win. Or number two, Luz saw that Ida and Rain were in danger, and so she had to go and throw off the race so she can rescue them. I'm glad they didn't go into that direction, because that would have been the easiest thing that they could have done.
I thought that was the direction they were going to go into.
I'm glad that they didn't.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing about this. Going back to this character that we don't know too much about, whether it's his dad or whether it's King's dad or not, we're not too sure. I mean, did you look at like the cart that he's currently going around? It has like an eyeball that kind of reminds me of like the portal door.
Yeah, it's very strange looking, and I guess this person was like constantly traveling, so they were never in like one specific spot.
Yeah.
And maybe that eye is meant to like keep an eye on like travelers, or maybe not being captured by Emperor Bellos or something
but
like that.
there might be a possibility that maybe he might have something to do with building the portal door.
That could be a possibility. Like maybe, I mean, we don't even know how old this monster thing is, so maybe he could have helped out Philip Wittebane to make the portal door. Who knows?
Well, maybe his ancestors might have done. Keep in mind, like this is like he comes from the 1800s. So it was the 1800s, wasn't it? That Philip Wittebane.
No, okay, we got this wrong, by the way. We looked up the episode pictures, and it turned out it was the 1600s.
1600s, right? Okay, then. So that's interesting. So mind you, 1600s is a pretty interesting area, because I'm pretty sure the 1600s is when the witches' trials were taking place.
Yes.
Like Matthew
That's
Hopkins.
Exactly right.
Yeah, because I was looking at this as well. So Matthew Hopkins was the witches' trials were going on between like between 19 in the 1600s and the 1800s. This was going on at that point. So maybe that might tie into that in some point. So like I have a fan theory about like you were telling me about Metal Gear Solid. When we were having that discussion before. Like like there was like before obviously what happened with Solid Snake, and say there was like Big Boss and like everything else happened before then. Like, it makes me wonder, like, I could see, some, like, a guy from, like, the past, like, getting, like, in front of, like, Luz and, like, Ida and, like, everybody else, and saying, this all started with a bunch of old fools, and now all those old fools have passed away. Like no, seriously, I could see something like that similar happening. Like, if Matthew Hopkins had gone round, and taken advantage of like the English Civil War and like started executing all these witches and forced witches to like flee to the Boiling Isles, none of this would have happened. It all started at this point as zero, and now I'm going to turn zero into nothing. But
Yeah.
I can see something like that, taking place. But anyway, we're all over the show at the moment. There's so many possibilities. Funnily enough, it was a pretty straightforward episode that would, expanded on Ida and expanded on King and expanded on, on a few other things. But, it kind of, makes you really, have a massive think about all the other stuff that's tied into this as well. It really does make you, want to think about more about this show. So we get to that point where, this is all shared around, and we end up with that character, and that we don't know if it's going to be King's dad or not, but I'm sure we're going to find out soon enough. By the way, it looks to me like whatever's happening to Amity's not happening to Amity. I think she's pretty much okay at this point, because you can see her that she's watching and also she's getting on really well with her siblings. Which is interesting.
We did see that in the last episode where she was getting along with the siblings, and I think that that's definitely going to be playing a lot more once the series happens. But yeah, they were just starting off as jerks who made fun of Amity in season 1, but then season 2 they got a lot closer, which that just goes to show you.
Well, I mean, you keep in mind, if you remember the conversation about Amity saying she's feeling things that she never really felt, and then Emma turns around to her and says, "Well, is that such a bad thing? I mean, you were really upset before, and now you're starting to be happy again." So I think that's kind of what plays into why they were so mean to her before, because she was kind of mean to them back. So
I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah, but I think that's the reason why what took place. I mean, keep in mind, Edric and Emma were my least favorite characters, when we first met them. Pretty much. I didn't really get the context of that. But now that more story is kind of been leveled up, it's it kind of gives me more of an understanding of why they were kind of at each other's throats at one point. And now they're not.
I guess that's true, and also to the fact that I have a really strong feeling that they were really loved more by their mom as opposed to Amity, where she was told that she had to do this and this and that. So there's also another factor,
which is kind of strange because they ended up in the illusion track. They didn't end up following in the footsteps of their parents, if you keep in mind.
That's true. They did end up as illusionists as opposed to abominations.
Yeah. So. But anyway, yeah, that's unless we missed anything, I think that's pretty much the episode.
Yeah, I think that the direction.
Oh, hang on a second, we missed something. Yeah, King drops the bombshell that he's changing his name to King Clawthorn.
Oh yeah, that's right. The major plot twist in the end, where Ida thought that King was leaving her, when in reality he was going to be adopted with her.
Yeah, and so Ida just goes into this massive wail. I think she's the person that's cried the hardest so far. I think in season 2. Oh, good grief. So.
Well, I mean, that just goes to show you that a lot of people were influenced or had their lives changed thanks to Luce. And with Ida, it's man, going off from, she was treating King as oh, you're just the roommate who pays the bills. And now, it's essentially her son. It's wow, that's definitely how the show has progressed.
Mm-hmm. So, with that last bit, that was the episode.
That's the episode, but there's also one more thing that we need to bring up.
And what's that?
Okay, the Disney promotional website has revealed what episodes 9 and 10 are going to be called. And okay, it was leaked around for quite a while, but now it's been officially confirmed. So episode 9 is going to be called Eclipse Lake, where Luce is sick with the common mold, and Ida, Amity, and King are going to be finding something to help Luce out. And then episode 10 is called Yesterday's Lie, where it's involving with Luce trying to get the pieces together to see if she can get the portal to go back home, and then something unexpected happens. So yes, those are the episodes that are going to be out for the next few weeks. Next week's episode is going to be about Hooty, which I'm actually curious to see how they're going to continue to progress the story with this.
Well, interesting about knocking on Hooty's door is that the thumbnail that they seem to be going with is, Ida confronting the Owl Beast again. I'm not sure if you've seen that.
I mean, Yeah, I have seen that, and I'm wondering if maybe Hooty will be like the main and protagonist, like saving the day, because the synopsis says that Hooty is helping out Ida, Luce, and King with all their problems. So I'm actually curious about how that's going to turn out.
Yeah, but it seems interesting. I don't know if it's going to be the fact that I mean, I'm looking at the owl beast, and it kind of, I don't know, like it's all in color, which is kind of strange. Like I don't know if it's maybe something crazy happens, that maybe Hooty becomes the owl beast himself. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
That'd be kind of interesting. But yeah, so we've also this was leaked as well, and that is that we find out that Amity's Palismen is going to be a cat.
It's a white cat, which looks a lot like Dana Terrace's cat.
Yeah, so it's that, mind you, that doesn't surprise me. Like
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, like it also is a lifelong companion as well. So like that cat's going to be around for us. Like yeah. So I can only imagine, like, when she's in older age, it's kind of like, she's living on the earth, she's on Earth now with Luz, and it's kind of like, hey, that crazy cat lady with a cat, like, I think she's a witch. Like, yeah, it's like, what gives you that idea? It's like, well. So,
Well, there you go.
there you go. Let's talk about knocking on Hooty's door. So, the Owl House, Season 2, Episode 8. Everyone thought this was going to be a filler episode. That was what the attitude of this was going in. Oh, boy, was everyone wrong. Was everyone so wrong. And I leave with 4 things to discuss in this episode. The first one is that Hooty is probably now our most complex character in the show. I think.
Wow.
That's incredible. That we walk through that. Like, we all thought that the only way he was gonna, like, say somewhat stable, and maybe it might be the fact that Lulu or Lilith is still playing a part in Hooty, somewhat holding together. Obviously not so well. Obviously now that she's gone away, and maybe now Hooty is being a bit more mature about things, maybe, or just overreacting in certain places, which I think we're going to get in this episode. But he right in this episode is the story driver of this. He's even the narrator of this episode through writing his letter back to. By the way, he may not be able to hold a pen, but he can type with a typewriter. So
yes,
that's what
very clever.
That's why he was actually that. So he's going to be our episode master, I guess you could say, through this. And so we go through the intro after that. So then the one thing I really like about this episode, it's kind of like the classic cartoons like we used to have, where it's like 5-minute segments of here's an episode. It's kind of like Cow and Chicken in a way. Kind of like, here's them Super Cow saving the day in this particular episode, and then we get an I Am Weasel kind of thing, and then after that we get another episode say about the ugliest weenie, something like that. They're kind of segmented off in that kind of way, in like a classic 90s style, I would say, telling within Hooty kind of telling the different kind of chronicled events. So the first event that we get is that the King Clawthorn, as he's now known as, seems to be going through demon puberty at the moment. So he's going through that. But King is going through a crisis because he doesn't know what type of demon he is. Which, is, right. I guess, in a way, is sort of maybe kind of confused me a little bit to begin with, because, I mean, isn't King supposed to kind of, be, an expert in, what demons are? In a way,
yeah,
but he doesn't.
I mean, he even has a whole encyclopedia of it. But even with season 1, as you guys remember, with the Snaggleback, where he thought it was a big, scary monster, but then we find out it's just a little tiny turtle-looking monster. So I think that even with the encyclopedia that King has is a little bit stretchy. I mean, it's like with old books of lore in which they would talk about all these types of monsters, where they would just be focusing on legends and possible hypothesis of what they would be. So I don't know if King probably got an older version of it from the library. I'm not sure.
So I think maybe what King probably knows is probably maybe the bare basics of demons. Maybe he probably doesn't know complexities of types of demons, or he doesn't know, because in this episode he kind of doesn't know what himself is. Like, maybe he's
No.
probably learned more since then. So, he basically only knows the bare basics. So, Hooty himself, being, a demon house, pretty much, takes King and he takes him into his basement, and which kind of shows. When I first saw that, I was like, "Oh, we're going into Saw right now." Like it was kind of creepy kind of vibe to it. But then we learn that Hooty is going to try and reveal what King actually is. So there's 3 types of demons that we learn about. There's the insectoid type of demon. There's the beast kind of demons, and I forgot what the second one was.
Bidal.
So they try the first one, which is the insect one, but he obviously doesn't match up to that at all. And then he tries the second one, which these types of demons can actually do types of magic. So bring in Dana Terrace's doppelganger for
Tiny Nose. Yeah,
Tiny Nose. So she ends up doing magic on King, and he ends up getting roughed up because of that. So obviously that's a no as well. So then we go through the third one, where Tiny Nose seems to now has acquired a medical license and is attracting bits of King's blood, and so they're trying to figure out if he's actually part of the beast type of demon. So then they end up on the roof, and they decide to have pretty much a rap party to discover that King, the type of demon that he is just him. So we went through all of that, and nothing was achieved.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then
King was saying you are you, and and then he was talking about we tested your blood results and it was inconclusive, so you're just King. So there you go.
So King does not take well to that. He ends up yelling out, but then finds out that he can actually destroy things with his voice.
Yeah, kind of like a loud sonic screech, which was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it makes me wonder: is he going to go for a Jack phase? From The Incredibles, where he demonstrates different types of powers, and then eventually
I would love
settles
that
with one.
so much. That would be so cool.
Oh my goodness! He's going to be shape-shifting and teleporting, and
he's going to be having laser vision. He's going to be turning into stone. He's going to be turning into a feral demon.
Oh my goodness! There's a lot of possibilities with King now, and so that's a happy bit that came out of that segment. He can yell at stuff now and just destroy things.
Yeah.
Do you know what would be hilarious if I don't know if one of the characters they lose their staff or isn't able to do magic, so they just pick King up and just use him as a gun and just start destroying stuff. Oh, that would be hilarious to see that.
Yeah, kind of like how Hooty was used by Lilith to shoot out the potions. Special delivery.
Pain. So that's that segment. So we learned something more about King. He can do powers. So he's obviously got some kind of sonic boom or something like that. So sonic boom. Wow.
My gosh.
Okay, so that's the first segment out of the way. So Hooty thinks he's failed in that regard, but really hasn't. So he tries a second time. This time it's to muck around with Ida's relation with the owl beast inside of her.
Yes.
What could possibly go wrong?
Everything.
Yeah. So, Hooty makes some magic cookies, which got some sleeping nettles on them, and then Ida falls to sleep, and then she ends up in obviously the world which she encompasses in the world with the Owlbees living in it, and she goes through some memories. By the way, we get to meet Ida's dad in this.
Yeah, and we now get to learn about where the red hair came from both Lilith and Ida.
Yeah, and mind you, there's a bit of gory bit in this because the owl beast attacks her. Ida morphs into the owl beast as a young age and starts attacking her dad, and ends up gouging his eye out.
And all he was trying to do is make a celebration. It's hey, I'm going over to the mandate, and he just pulls out a little bit of one of those celebration crackers, and then Ida reacts to it horribly, and so we saw the owl beast scratching her dad's eye, and there was blood coming out of it. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well, there was blood in Gravity Falls, so I don't think we should be surprised here. I don't think so.
Okay, fair enough, but something this graphic, right away, it's okay. This happened.
Yeah.
So, wow.
This is one thing I think we'll say this discussion at the end of the show, but I think this show is progressing far quicker than, say, She-Ra, Princess of Power, or, the Gravity Falls itself, I think, at this point. Like, you know,
Well,
they
I mean, a lot of people can make the argument that Dana Terrace knew that she was going to have this amount of seasons, and the season 2 was going to be like the last full season because season 3 was the
Well, no,
three
I think from what
45-minute
she told
specials.
me, from what I remember, I remember from a live stream, I think the season 3 shortening came as a surprise to everyone. I think
Oh
so. I
yeah,
think
that's right. I
they got to
forgot.
season 2, but then they were told, "Oh, you're gonna have like 3 TV specials, and then that's gonna be it." You
Oh
know,
yeah.
yeah, I think so. Basically, they're gonna have to wrap up the entire show in these three segments, which if I think it's really unfair. I would have said, look, 2 TV movies. I would have said. I think rather than 40-minute specials, I would have said have like 2 hours, have like an hour and a half to like wrap everything up in, and there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Surely you can do it within 3 hours.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
I would
yeah.
have thought. But so with that, moving on to the through the Ida segment, it's so she looks like she has this really massive freak out, which would not be out of place in a Roger Waters or a Pink Floyd movie at this point.
Oof.
Oh, good grief! It was all over the show. This and then we get introduced to apparently this mysterious character with the moon for a face apparently was someone who tried to capture Ida from the looks of it.
Yeah.
And this person has a name. Apparently he's called the Collector. So,
The Collector.
Yeah.
Maybe working for Bellows or something.
Well, hopefully no reference to the Marvel movies, but yeah, like it's what has he got? Has he got what's his face? His name is explaining it. Thingy the Duck. What's his name?
Oh,
Howard the Duck.
Duck.
Yeah, he's got Howard the Duck in his collection too. Yeah. Oh, but if Howard the Duck turns up in the Owl House, yep, it's like, yeah, this is a Disney property.
Oh, geez. And next we're going to have the Owl House in the next Marvel Cinematic Universe movie.
I don't
Why
write it
not?
off. If the one thing if they did it as the very last thing of the Owl House where they had all the Disney protagonists out of all the shows come together to fight Bellows. Or fight Wolf. I should say, there's something I actually want to talk about between Bellows and Kikimori at the end of the show, but we'll talk about that later on. But so we go through Ida. She's has this freak out pretty much in a dream. She then finds that the owl beast is now weakened and is now trying to fly away from Ida, but he can't, which is interesting. It makes me wonder, is the owl beast itself also an entity that used to exist but now has been morphed into Ida because of the curse? Maybe
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe they just kind of bonded together out of this curse. Maybe there's a way to unbound them. I don't know. So
I don't know.
no.
I mean, we've seen in the previous episodes that the Potion Coven and the Healing Coven had tried many times of what they can do with this curse, and they don't know what it is. I mean, we even saw in one of the dream sequences that the curse came by in that form that Lilith purchased. It came from the ocean, and then it just landed in the sea, and then the guy just picked it up and put it in the trash. So there's okay, so it came from the ocean somewhere. Maybe somebody threw it out, hoping that it was never be found, and then maybe, the guy who was picking it up, maybe it just ended up somewhere in the market, and then Lilith just purchased it, and that just brings up so many questions.
It does,
yeah.
doesn't it? So
and then there's this really sad moment where we see Ida with Rain, and Rain is saying, I don't know how much I can do this anymore. You're not telling me anything. I think we're done. It's they were dating at one point. Which,
yeah, they
were.
Here's the thing about this. Everyone got really upset about over this. I got to be honest with everybody though. I kind of knew they broke up. They must have done. I highly doubt, Rain would have just kind of just parted ways, just said see ya, and they'd never seen each other again for years on end. I knew something had happened. I thought.
I mean, and from the looks of it, I'm sure that Rain would have, been helpful with the curse at some points. Maybe try to calm it down with, their music, but I mean, Ida was saying, I don't need your help, go away. And then Rain was fine, I'll just leave and I'll just join the,
she didn't exactly say that. She said, there's no problem here. But obviously Rain knew that she wasn't telling the truth, and so she couldn't do that anymore. Which,
yeah.
I don't know, anyway, we'll go, I've got another question about that later on with this other segment. But anyway, let's just continue with Ida. Because, by the way, these sort of segments are complex. To say the least.
They are.
You need, if you've not watched this episode by now, you need to. You seriously do. So,
Absolutely.
Ida and this owl beast are now bounded together, and she finds that, the owl beast doesn't need, punishing. It just needs taking care of from the looks of it. So she ends up feeding some of the elixir to the owl beast, and then all of a sudden they kind of like, morph together. And now, so at this point, here's how I see Ida. I see her kind of like the Incredible Hulk. You get her, round her up a little bit, she's going to turn into the owl beast, and you're basically fucked. But if you, it looks like now the beast within Ida and Ida herself have now come to kind of like this middle. And now I kind of compare Ida to the Incredible Hulk, where like she'll be Bruce Banner at one point, and then the Incredible Hulk at the other. And then if you remember in the Incredible Hulk, there's this kind of like this intermediate between like the beast within Bruce Banner and like Bruce Banner himself, and there's kind of like this Grey Hulk. That kind of like is in the middle.
We saw that in Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, exactly. So now we have the Grey. So this is kind of like the Owl House's version of the Grey Hulk, I would imagine. So Ida and the Owl Beast have morphed together, and now they're kind of like she's kind of like this owl lady. So
yeah, she is literally Ida the Harpy lady.
Harpy lady. So. Yeah, so she's now basically made up. But Hooty sees that and freaks out, even though Ida loves it. And we like it too. I think it's cool. But
I think it looks awesome.
I think it does, yeah. She's like, she's a superhero. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah, she's almost like Hawk Girl.
Yeah. So, Hooty freaks out, and so decides to go for one last shot at trying to make people happy, and oh my goodness, does he pick the wrong one.
Oh my goodness, where do we begin?
Okay, so, Hooty kidnaps Amity. Just go with us, okay? Kidnaps Amity and lures Luce into the basement. And so, they meet up, and Amity is still apologetic about the kiss that took place at Light Manor. And so she wants to kind of forget about it, but Luz doesn't want to forget about it, and so she ends up trying to get Amity out of the basement. Before she can do that, they fall deeper into the basement, and we find out there's actually a sub-basement in this place. And
reasons.
Yeah, and I gotta be honest with you, this kind of makes me question Hooty on so many levels. Like, I really don't know how to explain this to everybody, but he basically is probably the biggest Lumity shipper out of, like, everybody, like, in the show and probably outside of the show. Because I kid you not...
Even more so than Morgan.
Probably more so than Morgan, yes. Because he constructed an entire tunnel of love based on Luz and Amity. And we just sat here looking at, like, is this real? Like, it was... Did a fan write this segment? Like, yeah. So,
wow.
Luz goes through, like, all this awkwardness, but there's the thing about this. Amity actually likes it.
Yeah.
And it's like, so we've gone from, like, top girl in the class, hanging out with the bullies, challenge, stepping on King's cupcake and, jousting Luz in a witch's duel. We've gone all the way from that to a cheesy tunnel of love scene where Amity is growing bright red as a tomato and loving every moment of it.
And Luz was embarrassed with it because she said, all of my other friends said that I was too cheesy and I don't want to be that. She thinks that Amity is cool and classy and she wants to present herself that way. And when she sees the tunnel of love and all the letters like Hooty is shooting out with dressed up as Cupid saying, Amity be mine and Amity you are a cutie. She is embarrassed with it. And we saw this moment where Amity, when Luz was trying to like take down everything and Amity was just like really like upset with it. I mean, she had the same exact face as the Grometheus form in Grom Knight, where it was shaped like Luz, taking the letter, Luz, would you go out to Grom with me, and tearing it up.
Yeah.
So with Luz, she's saying, oh man, Amity's gonna think I'm cheesy. I don't want this. But Amity's saying, wow, maybe Luz doesn't like me. And the whole tearing this thing down, she's feeling rejection.
Yeah. And, here's the thing about this. Like, Amity has come leaps and bounds. Like, you would have thought she would have been freaking out at this point when all of that was going on. But, she took it so well. Like, it was more just kind of like, oh, it's disappointment. It is massive disappointment. And she kind of just wants to walk away and kind of like just, maybe consoling her siblings about like what just happened, and that was going to take place. And so Hooty has taken that as the final straw, and basically it looks like he's about to destroy the Owl House from the looks of it. So which is so that all happens, and so King it gets knocked off the top of the house. Ida comes to save the day, and so if King's freaked out about what just happened, he's like, "Oh no, it's okay," for Ida, and then Luz and Amity come out of the basement, and they wonder what the hell's going on, and are nearly crushed to death by part of the wall. And it was only because of King's new founded, voice-shattering power that they're able to do that, and that kind of creates another Lumity moment in itself. Pretty much.
Yes.
So, Ida then grabs hold of Hooty, trying to calm him down and trying to stop him from, like, destroying himself and everyone around him. And while all that's going on, Luz and Amity, would you believe it? They put Lumity together in that whole segment. And now it is official. And mind you, here's the thing about this, and I really want to give this some really good thoughts on what we just saw, because this wasn't done for as like some kind of poetic kind of way. It wasn't done in a romanticized kind of way. This was two dorky 14-year-old girls, going through like an awkward phase, and they treated it just like that and made it authentic, and that's why it's so special to people.
Yes, it wasn't forced, it wasn't contrived, it was authentic, and it was awkward, and it was weird, and it was uncomfortable, and that's how it should be.
Yeah, and they did a really good job of presenting this, and credits to the actresses, by the way. They did an incredible job, putting these two together.
Yeah, Sarah Nicole Robles and Mae Whitman did a phenomenal job at this. Portraying the awkward uncomfortableness of trying to reveal to your love, I like you, can you go on a date with me? And, trying like all of these ways of expressing it, but not knowing if they're going to approve of it or not. Yeah, that's real.
Yeah, I don't want to make this too personal about, me and Patricia. It kind of reminded me of us at the very beginning.
It did, actually.
It did, yeah. It's, I still remember, Highways of the Friend Zone will always be our favorite episode of the Arun Meta show. It really will be. But, because, we were kind of like that. Here's the thing about this, there will be some Lumity fans who were a bit disappointed that it didn't, go all the way, which, to which I say, they're 14, give them a chance. It's it is going to be awkward for them at the very beginning, because this is a new learning experience for the both of them. The likelihood that Amity has ever been in a previous relationship is very minimal, to say the least. And to say that, let's not even talk about Luz ever having, a romantic relationship with anybody, given the fact where she was at the very beginning of season 1. Let's rule that out altogether.
Not. I mean, remember that Luz in the first season was the outcast, the weirdo, the one that everybody was saying, wow, she's not like everybody else. And she was being sent to the principal's office because she would get in trouble of all of her show and tell presentations and, all that kind of stuff. And everybody just didn't know what to do with her, to the point in which her mom said, yeah, you need to go to normal camp. But here in the Boiling Isles, she is seen as somebody unique and refreshing and loving and caring and supporting. And, the fact that Amity, who was like this, stuck up, higher class person who was like raised to be the best of the best with the Blights and had this huge reputation of, keeping with dignity and all that kind of stuff, and seeing somebody like Luz who's just like really out there. And it was like, wow, there's somebody out there that I can be truly myself with. And I never knew I needed it.
I go back on this, I go back through all my ships that I have, I ship Fox and Crystal in Star Fox. I ship, Linguini
Arnold and Helga?
Helga, yeah, and Linguini and Colette from Ratatouille, and various other ones. But, I mean, they all have, their quirks. I mean, I've got to be honest, Arnold and Helga, even though I do ship them, I think, if I had to choose a more realistic ship, I think that started off, I've got to be honest, I have to go with Luz and Amity. I
agree 100%. The things that Helga and Arnold started in the 90s, Luz and Amity perfected it. Mm-hmm. Think about it. The fact that they were bullies at the beginning, the fact that they were kind of awkward towards each other, the fact that they were starting to get closer to each other, and they were starting to learn about them, and they would be put into these really awkward situations, and then at the end, bam, now they're dating.
Yeah.
So, we went through like all of this. I mean, I'm not going to say like a really unpopular opinion, and I don't know how fans feel about this, but the episodes where Arnold and Helga were paired up together, where Helga was like being really mean to Arnold and all that kind of stuff, those were actually some of my least favorite episodes because I just felt that, the fact that Helga was just being so mean to Arnold was just frustrating. But the stuff with Luce and Amity, I mean, sure, was kind of like that at first, but then it started to progress into where it is now. It's like, wow, man, like if Hey Arnold was ever brought back for maybe I mean I know for like a season 6, I mean I hope that they go into this direction because it is just done so well, like my goodness.
Yeah. So, but I again, like I don't want to compare. This is the one thing about this, like all relationships are unique. We shouldn't be comparing couples with one another. That's
Sure.
nothing we should really be doing. But I mean, like, but in regards to like storytelling and in regards to believability, I mean, like, Luz and Amity are just like there's a reason Lumity is special. I mean, like, for a lot of people, because they actually feel like it's authentic. Like you got two
Yes.
characters who actually like got off on I would say the wrong foot, and then but they
Like
worked for.
no, literally, like they have a justified reason on why they shouldn't even like each other. Luz shouldn't like Amity because she was being really mean to Willow. She was the school bully who was just like pushing around people, saying that she's the best. She's the top student, and then she was the one who was like being caused with all of this trouble. And Amity shouldn't be liking Luz because every time that they were together, Amity would get called to detention or would be embarrassed, and all of that stuff is justifiable and real. It's like, yeah, there's a reason why you shouldn't like each other. And that episode, Lost in Language, where Amity was saying to Luz, why are you doing this? Oh, I know why. It's because you're a bully. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, with all the stuff that Luz had done, like causing Amity to be in detention and embarrassing herself at the convention when she wanted to be in the Emperor's Coven, it's like, yeah, she's justifiably called for Luce to be the bully. So absolutely. So there's a reason why at the beginning you would think, man, like they shouldn't even be friends, but no. As time went on, they understood each other. They worked together in various situations. They became friends, and then as time goes on, they're dating each other, and I'm like, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So Lumity is now canon. I think that is the
Yes.
big takeaway. I think from everything like that. But there was also other cool stuff. Is it like King is becoming more powerful, and Ida is now controlling the Owl Beast in a way, and it looks like maybe they might go to the point where they might wean her off the elixirs, maybe. So that could be a thing too. So
Yeah, like maybe she's not taking it as much, and who knows? Maybe Ida will share this information for Lilith so that she can become a Harpy lady.
well, I mean, keep in mind, Hooty's writing the letter to Lilith to send it
That's
over,
right.
so she will eventually find out about it. So
Oh yeah. I
how
don't
cool
know
would
how
that be? Like, Ida's,
quick.
Ida's in a fight, and she's just about to lose, and then all of a sudden Lilith comes in, and she's like her own version of, like, the Harpy lady. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna, that'd be kind of cool to see. So,
Yes, two Harpy ladies taking down Emperor Bellows. That would be awesome.
okay, well, actually, let's get into that, because there's a theory that's going around, which I actually find of interesting. Maybe Emperor Bellows is not the main antagonist of the show.
Oh, who do you think is the main antagonist?
Kiki Mora.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, because we have been seeing Kiki more and more prominent in the later episodes. Like we saw her in the last episode where she was, talking to Emperor Bellows and she wants to be like the one on top, and she's giving all the jealousy traits because Emperor Bellows is more connected over to Hunter, which we know now is, his nephew. And then in the last episode where we saw that Kikimora was with the Abomination Soldier and, she captured Rain. So, wow. Maybe you're right.
There's part of me that believes that maybe she's pulling the strings. Like maybe she's the reason why Emperor Bellows is turning into that Wendigo creature. Maybe. And
Possibly.
she's
I don't
controlling.
know.
Also, that thing on her head's controlling, and maybe that's her Palismen. Maybe that thing on her head that's controlling. Those things on their arms. So like that's another thing as
Wow.
well.
You might be right.
Yeah, maybe the final showdown isn't going to be between Luz and Bellows. Maybe the final showdown is going to be between Luz and Kikimora. Maybe.
Or maybe Kikimora will maybe stab Emperor Bellos in the back, and then she'll take over.
Likely it is, yeah. Maybe in the Day of Unity when that happens, maybe that's when
Yeah,
she
like the Day of
graces the
Unity when
promises.
that happens, when Emperor Bellows, maybe when he's at his most weakness, and then, he tries to pull off one last thing, and then Kikimora, like, comes by, and then she, like, tosses him aside, and then she's like, I'm the one who's powerful. You will respect me.
There's another thing to it as well. In all the stained glass scenes, where in in the final episode in season 1,
Yeah.
I think it was actually before then. It was, you look in the stained glass. The more powerful bits in the stained glass is actually with a hand grasping over this power orb. She controls a hand dragon. She's got a hand for a head. Maybe that probably might be the thing. That might be that. Who knows? So, anyway, wrapping up this. Sorry to kind of go away from the episode, but just to wrap up the episode. So, Hooty's now feeling good because he's actually managed to fix things, pretty much for the King, Ida, and for Lumity as well. But unfortunately, he's now been told never to help out anybody ever again. Pretty much at this point. So maybe he's done enough damage, maybe for one episode. So
I mean, yes, but his intentions were pretty good. I mean, just like when Lilith, first enters into the owl house, and she wanted to be left alone, and then he said, a good friend would stay away, but a better friend would be there no matter what. And, look what the relationship that, Hooty and Lilith have. I mean, they're still pen pals and they're still connecting with each other. And look at all the help that, Hooty did. He was able to help Ida get a much more better control of the Owl Beast. He was able to help King release powers that he never knew that he had. And he was able to help Luce and Amity come together. So, you know what? Yes, his intentions were very, very, very extreme, but they've done wonders at the end.
Yeah. By the way, we see the kind of demon character that we saw at the very end of the last episode delivering a letter to King, only for Hooty to eat the letter and hope that it was junk mail.
So frustrating.
I think he might cough that back up at some point.
I hope he does.
Yeah.
Oh, man. We were so close.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
Yeah, I think he's going to be like the Will in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Exactly.
Roger Rabbit wrote the love letter on the will.
On the lip, exactly. Yeah, he put lipstick on the blank piece of paper, and then it turned out it was invisible ink, and so it just so happened to be the will. So yeah. I hope at some point that, Hooty will maybe cough up the letter, and then, we find out who this guy is, because we still don't know.
Yeah, we found out that King Clawfoot owns Toontown.
Okay, yeah, sure. If we're gonna have the connections with the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the other Disney shows, yes, we're gonna have a connection with Roger Rabbit and all the Looney Tunes characters. Yes, we're gonna have that.
Who hexed Roger Rabbit? All right, I think we're done here. Okay, let's talk about the Owl House Season 2, Episode 9, Eclipse Lake, and let's just start off with the cold open, because right off the bat, they show us Emperor Ballas' face.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he looks more normal than I thought he was. I thought it was going to be, really deformed, especially with him being transformed into, this, creepy, cursed, mud-looking monster. But no, he just looks like a genuinely normal guy with, his silver blonde hair, and he has smaller ears than I've seen anybody on the show so far, and he has this huge greenish brown scar on his face, which looks very interesting, and there's a lot of theories as to why he looks like that, but I'm sure we'll get to that at some point.
Yeah, I think he's. The most obvious explanation, I think, what we've got here for Ballas, I think, is that one, he's cursed. I think that's probably a good explanation for that. That's the reason why he despises wild magic. And number two, he's probably the human, and he may either be Philip Widderbane himself, or probably maybe a descendant of Philip Widderbane. So I think
a lot of people have been making the argument that he might be a descendant of Philip Widderbane, because as we heard from Hunter in the previous episode, that his family does not have magic. And a lot of people are saying, okay, well, if Philip was a human and maybe he got married to a witch, maybe that particular line of families would not have the bile sac in them so that they cannot perform magic, which is why both Hunter and Emperor Bellows are using artificial magic on their staff so that they can be able to perform their techniques and abilities. So people are making the argument that, he might be a descendant of Philip Wittebane. But then there's also the argument, now that we saw that cold open, that he could be a Grim Walker. So if you were able to pause in the cold open a book that Emperor Bellows is opening, where you get to see ingredients on how to make a Grim Walker, where it says that Galderstone, which we did talk about in the episode look through the Looking Glass ruins, where the Galder stones were used to enhance magic, and it says that it's used as a heart and it's used for power. Then the Palistrum wood, which is used for keratin. Now, keratin is a type of protein that is used as the foundation for our skin, organs, nails, and hair. Stone sleeper lungs, which we have not seen what a stone sleeper looks like. I mean, in the show at least. I mean, we've seen a picture of it. It kind of looks like a Tyrannosaur, well, like kind of like a Stegosaurus almost. Then the Selkidamas scales, which we already knew about the Selkidamas because in the first episode of season 2, that was when they were trying to capture it for the bounty, and Emperor Bellows sent Hunter to kill it. And then there's the bone of Orctet. I looked up Orctet online to see what it is. It's a botany term for a plant that was originated from a clone of a plant. So let's just say if you take a leaf of a plant and then you were able to put it in the ground and grow it, and then it grows into its own plant. That is the clone of the original plant's form. So then we saw in the other picture that there's like a lot of ingredients, and if you mix it together, it forms into like a person. And we got to see from the eyes that they look exactly like Hunter's eyes. And I'm like, is Hunter a clone of Emperor Bellows, or if he's a Grimwalker? So there's a lot of things that were just revealed in like the first minute, and that's incredible.
Well, first 36 seconds to be more precise, but
okay, fine.
Yeah, but I mean, like, my view on this. Here's the thing about this, like, I don't necessarily believe yet that Hunter is, a Grimwalker, as in, like, a monster in itself. Like, I am going to, because if you look at the book, like, unless in the Boiling Hours you read, right to left, if you notice, like, the Grimwalker section is actually on a different page compared to, like, the other bit, which looks like it's actually part of, like, another spell. So, like, the likelihood is that, I think maybe Emperor Bellows may have used another spell, or maybe have used another way of, like, creating a clone of himself and put it, and basically that is Hunter. So that's one thing that he potentially do. I mean, I'll definitely say he's not been made from the Ortmeyer files. He's not a bald killer clone with a barcode on the back of his head. But I don't know, like, what I mean, whatever the way that he created him. Oh my goodness, that throws in so many, like, ethical questions or unethical, like, behavior from this guy. And I've got a lot of people like saying, like, oh, he looks a lot, more pleasant looking than I thought he was. It's like, yeah, but, don't be fooled by a pretty face, Like, he's still a genocidal maniac who has murdered loads of wild witches and is now basically creating clones of himself. And
and also not to mention that he has no care whatsoever for his subjects. Like, he would easily replace them if they don't do exactly what he does. I mean, we saw with Hunter that he just feels absolute guilt that he wasn't able to collect the Palismen for Emperor Bellows in the last episode that we talked about. And so, there's like this talk of like, in any normal circumstance, I'm sure that, Hunter would have been gone. But then he's saying, no, but the Titan needs you. I need you to stay in this castle where you'll be perfectly safe. And it's like, oh, really? Tend to give us an explanation on that.
So, I mean, he mentioned the one thing that's currently going around is that the reason why he wants him safe and the reason that he says that the Titan's got big plans for him is that he's probably going to plan to transfer himself out of his own body and into Hunter.
Oh, geez, we're gonna wait into Naruto territory where Orochimaru, his body was decaying, and so he needed Sasuke so that he can be able to keep himself afloat and use his abilities. So it's like, damn. But then again, I saw a lot of like Naruto comparisons, but I'll get to that in just a moment.
Man, it's like what's his Shang Al Ghul? Is it like from Batman? Raj Al Ghul?
Oh yeah.
Like he
Raj Al Ghul,
Raj Al Ghul used his daughter to, like, keep himself alive in Batman Beyond. Like,
Oh,
that was
jeez,
creepy. But yeah, there was that, and so that was only like the first like minute of the show, and like, then there was the intro on top of
36
that.
seconds.
36 seconds, yeah, and then there was like the 36 seconds like reveal what we just talked about, and then there was the bit where he said, "Yeah, I need you in the castle, bye," and then he runs off, and then that's the other part of it. But yeah, so we then go into the intro. We then find that Amity is basically running the show, and is trying to gather as much healthy food and relaxing music, and making sure that the house is guarded by Hooty, of all people. But then we find out the reason why she's doing this is because Luce is sick with something called the common mold. Ida's wondering why on earth she's worried about, because obviously it's a very common thing for the things to get. But we found out that Luz is a human, and well, we've known that for all along, but apparently humans have never got the common mold before, so we don't know what it's like. And you can definitely tell that Luz is not taking to it too well, because her brain appears to be turning into wallpaper paste as she thinks that snakes are made of arms, and she's going completely off the rails in some places. So.
Yeah, she definitely acts like Sokka in the episode of the Blue Spirit, where both Sokka and Katara were sick with the fever, and Aang had to buy frozen frogs so that they can be able to be cured. And Sokka just acts really loopy because he is high with a fever, and he's like seeing a lot of illusions from Momo. So yeah, Luz is going through a similar situation where she thinks that she has snakes for arms, and she thinks that she could be able to recover really quickly, when in reality she cannot. So yeah, she is a bit delirious.
Mm-hmm. So then she actually the Echo Mouse starts to open up again about the diary, and then we find out about Eclipse Lake, and so Luz is desperate to get out, but obviously they keep her in bed, and Amity, being the awesome girlfriend that she is, volunteers to go off into Eclipse Lake and try and find out what's going on down there, and trying to find the stuff they need for the key. So, we don't realize it's actually stuff for the key. It's I'm sorry, I'm all over the place with this bit. So they go to Eclipse Lake to go find the Titan blood. That's what it's for.
Yes, yeah. And we did know about the Titan blood in episode 4 when Gwendolyn, Ida, and Lilith's mother was talking about how it's extremely rare and how it cuts through the dimensions between Bonesboro and the human world. So we already knew that, but we get more details about it, saying that this is the thing that powers up the portal door. Was they needed Titan's blood, but unfortunately Titan's blood is incredibly rare, like almost to the point in which they can't find it. And so they go back into the knee, where they go over to Eclipse Lake. And the knee was a place that we went to in Adventures of the Elements. That's the episode where, Luz and Ida were getting their training, and Ida was teaching Luz about a new ability. That's where she gets her ice ability. And this is where Edric and Emra were teaching Amity about magic. And, oh man, the parallels of that is phenomenal, especially when we go over to Amity's scene, but we'll get to that in just a moment. So, Amity, being like the awesome, amazing girlfriend that she is, she decides to volunteer to go with Ida and King so that they can be able to get Titan's blood over at Eclipse Lake.
Yeah. By the way, the one joke that fans have been going, it's like, she's been announcing herself as the girlfriend so many times in this episode, and it's like, you hear that, Disney? Like,
yes, just... exactly. They're not best friends. They're not gal pals. No, they are girlfriends.
Yeah, and yes. Apparently there's a rumor going around. I don't know if this is true or not. Apparently this was done intentionally to stop them from censoring it overseas.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
Yeah. So we end up with a situation where we go to the knee, where we suspect Eclipse Lake is to be, and we already see that the Emperor's Covenant's already busy at work trying to actually get access to the old mine that's in there. And we bump into Kikimora, who is basically going crazier by the episode, from the looks of it.
And yeah, she is definitely. I can definitely see like Azula vibes from her, toward the last episodes when she has to live up to Fire Lord Ozai's stance on her, saying, "Okay, I need you to be the Fire Lord of the Fire Nation. Well, I'm the Phoenix King." And so she starts deteriorating and losing her mind to really get herself up there. And we saw in the last episode that she failed on getting the Palismen for Emperor Bellos, and she doesn't know that the Golden Guard was the one. I mean, she kind of knew at that the Golden Guard was the one responsible for getting rid of the Palismen when she
Oh,
saw the
I think
scar
she's
on him.
aware that's what happened, and so now there's this rival. This is the thing, like it seems to be like the seeds are being sown for like a massive rift being developed within the Emperor's Coven. Like there'll be those within the Emperor's Coven who look up to the Golden Guard as like the poster boy of the Coven, and then there'll be those who think that Kikimora should be the one that kind of leads off. So maybe we might be building up to a point where there's going to be like a massive fight within amongst the ranks. So and something that Emperor Bellos can't control. So
And we even saw in like the intro of the show, like we saw Kikimora being really calm and reserved, just like she was in season 1. But she's like really like losing her mind, and she's just going out in massive bursts, like in the episode that we just saw today, where she's really wanting to prove herself to Emperor Bellos, saying, "I want to be the one who is alongside with Emperor Bellos' right hand, not the Golden Guard." So yeah, she is desperate to look for the Titan's blood.
I don't know if this is going to be really unfair to say, but there's some parts of it that kind of reminded me of Rita Repulsa from Power Rangers in some places, when the way she was kind of acting off. It's like, I suppose at one point to say, after 10,000 years I'm free,
Or, magic make my monsters grow!
Something like that. Actually, that would have been one thing for the Abomatons. By the way, she's taken a really big liking to those Abomatons, hasn't she? Like,
yeah, she really is. She is definitely taking to it, even though that Darius wasn't really happy about it, saying that, that the Blights were hacks for creating the abominations the way that they were.
Yeah. So, maybe that probably might play into it. Like, maybe, there might be this rebellion, and like, who might be backing the Golden Guard and saying that, he's the guy who should be like, that they take sides with, and then all of a sudden, Kikimora releases the Abomatons, and suddenly starts controlling everything.
Or we can have like a bit of a reversal. Remember that theory that you were talking about, where you think that Kikimora might be the main villain of the series?
This is the thing. I'm starting to think less of that now with the way that she's just been behaving. She doesn't sound like someone who's kind of like in control of her own emotions at the moment. So, like, I would have thought, like, if she was, like, the main villain of, like, the show, I would have thought she would have just, like, kind of, like, gone with the flow. Like, remember when she imprisoned Rain? And when she was doing that, and I thought, oh, well, that's kind of like part. And she says, oh, I need to keep Rain because they're part of the plan. So right. I would have thought maybe that's just Kikimora obviously going along with what she eventually her eventual kind of like turn on Bellos, and that she's going to become like the massive bad guy for like season 3. I thought that's kind of like the direction I thought we were kind of going in. But no, she doesn't seem to be all that in control anymore from the sounds of it. So I don't think she's...
No, she is definitely going off the deep end, like severely much so. She is so desperate to get in good ranks with Emperor Bellos, to the point in which she's willing to just lose everything about
that's
herself.
What basically dents my theory a little bit, because like why the hell would she care what trying to please Emperor Bellos? If she's going to try and get all these, these powerful elements for him, and then she's just going to betray him in the end anyway and take all the power for herself, why would she care what Emperor Bellos thinks at this point?
Or maybe Emperor Bellos would be defeated, and then she would, like, completely break herself. It's like, I must avenge Emperor Bellos. I must be the one to take over.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Anyway, we get into the mine. Well, before we get into the mine, the Golden Guard decides to disguise himself as an Emperor Scout, and then he gets followed by these Palismen who won't stop leaving. We're calling him like Little Rascal, I think, at the moment. Are we?
I think that's what the name is for now, because that's what Luce called the little Palismen. Yeah. But yeah, he doesn't. We don't know a name yet. I mean, we do get somewhat of a hint at the end, but yeah.
Okay. So in the meanwhile, until then, let's refer to him as Rascal. So
sure.
Yeah. Okay. So Rascal tags around with Golden Guard and drags him basically in front of Amity, Ida, and King. And they think he's just a scout, but then they realize he then speaks up, and then they recognize his voice. And I love the fact that Amity has never met the Golden Guard in person, and they says, oh, he's all scrawnier than I thought he was going to be, and then King just burst out laughing. That was a brilliant moment.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah. So, mind you, I don't know what Rascal was thinking, dragging him in front of them. Did he want him to get captured? Or
I think reason why that happened was because maybe that, he was trying to help out Hunter. Is like, oh, they're doing the same thing. They're going to be looking for the Titan's blood. Why don't you guys work together? Because, you're not going to be able to take down Kikimura by yourself. I mean, he doesn't even have his artificial magic staff with him. So he doesn't have a connection with the Palismen yet. So I think that maybe, he was just trying to help him out, like maybe pair them up or something.
So I didn't think that he didn't bring his artificial staff with him, from the looks of it.
Yeah,
right?
that's a good thing. It's like, that's a good question. I mean, maybe Bellos is holding his staff back because he wants him to stay. He doesn't want him to go into any more missions. So maybe that's why he just kept it.
Maybe he's in the shop. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it is in the shop. But yeah, I mean, obviously Rascal knows who Ida is because if you remember, the Bat Queen was able to take all of the Palismen and they were going to be adopted that day. So I'm taking that maybe Rascal kind of recognized Ida and said, "Oh, you can trust her. She'll be able to help us out."
So we get to the point where everyone gets into the mine, and it's interesting that what were they? I mean, there's got all this mining equipment in there. Like, what were they mining Titan blood at one point?
Yes, they were. So if you remember from like the old lore and stories, back around the Savage times, they were using Titan's blood for their magic. And I guess as time went on, it was like completely depleted. And so that was when the time of Emperor Bellas came along, in which like they had to like restrict, like you cannot just use any magic that you want, and so you can only like belong into a certain coven. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what we talked about in the Palistrum wood from the last episode, in which like that has been like super common back then for people to like build their Palismens from it, but now it's become super rare because Emperor Bellas has been taking it. So yeah, I think that there's still a lot of things that we don't know about, like the mines for the Titan's blood. Like, what were they using them for other than just increasing their magic? I mean, I don't know if there was even any talks about like using it to go between different realms. I mean, there's just so many things that we just don't know about the show, and it just leaves you like asking questions.
So, so we get into that, and so it looks like the way that the cave is made up of this ancient material that, so if you launch magic at it, it like bounces around.
It is made out of the veins of the Titan.
Oh, okay, then so that's the reason why it does what it does. So
yes.
Yeah, this Titan, I'm really looking forward to the full explanation of it all. I really am.
Yeah, like, exactly. Like, we learned in the last episode that, the muck of the Titan was how we got demons. That's how we got demons such as Hooty, and, I mean, we don't know about what King is, but, yeah, that's how we got the bug demons, that's how we got the biped, that's how we got the beast demons. So, yeah, like, who is this Titan? How was it defeated? Yeah, and yeah, there's just so many questions about the Titan about it.
It makes me wonder, like, is the King linked to the Titan in some way? Like, always, like, if his people.
No, not because Hooty ate the letter.
I know. So, like, well, I think we'll find out eventually. I mean, do you remember there was actually, like, when they were doing, like, all the pilot stuff, and, like, there was one bit where I think there was, like, Luz and Ida are about to be, like, eaten by, like, monsters that kind of look like King. I think, and they, like, King was, like, there, like, I think that might play in at some point, I think. So
that could be a strong possibility, yes. Mm-hmm. But in the meanwhile, we do know that Hunter tells them that they cannot be shooting, these drill projectiles because the veins of the Titan would bounce it all over the place. And so then they are gonna like use this cave so that they can be able to find Eclipse Lake. And then Kikimura just so happens to be blocking the path where the lake is. And Ida decides to do a distraction, but then takes too long because she's trying to do all of her best to summon up her harpy form, which, there was this hilarious moment where she tries to like summon her harpy form by like going all Dragon Ball Z by trying to use all of her energy to like just squeeze herself out of it, and it's like, that doesn't work that way, Ida. Yeah.
So while that's going on, there's this other bit. By the way, I love how Lumidee's kind of like forming at this moment. Like they got these like cute little Tamagotchis that they kind of communicate now with. which I think
Yeah,
is
yeah, we'll get to that in a minute, but yeah, I mean, Amity is like receiving all of these messages from her Tamagotchi, which kind of looks like the cat from Azumanga Daioh for some reason. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, she's receiving these messages from Luz, and she's not able to understand it. And then Hunter sees one of them and says, I know what this says. It says, you better get the results or else she's gonna break up with you. And Amity was like, no way, I'm an awesome girlfriend. And Hunter's like, did she tell you that?
Yeah, but
And so
this
then
is interesting though, because like we see two characters who kind of like interpret like feelings for like or like love and affection like in completely different ways. I mean, like Hunter looked like he's in an abusive relationship with Emperor Balos, not like in a physical, not like in that way, but like he's basically being manipulated to like saying, oh, you're part of the you're in this whole Titan business as well, and I need you to basically kind of do what I say, and just kind of like being manipulated in an emotional way, as being like
we don't even know if he isn't being physically abused because he has scars all over him. He has his ear chipped. So
well, I don't know about the physical, but keep this in mind. Like if we're going to go on the fact that he's Emperor Balos' clone, I think maybe he's probably got those scars probably the same way that Emperor Balos probably has all those injuries as well. So like
possibly, yeah.
That might just be like what happened, what was transferred over. Maybe he probably has no knowledge of how he got those scars. So
maybe that could be a possibility. But yeah, you do bring up an interesting point about how Hunter and Amity were pretty much like the same. Going through the same situation where they both have to please their parental figures in order for them to feel like they're relevant. And that's a great scene that they had together where it was talking about how they would do anything that they could so that they can be able to get to the top and make their parental figures proud. And with Amity, we saw this in like the first few episodes. I Was a Teenage Abomination and Convention, where she was telling Luz, I need to do everything I can to get to the top. I want to be part of the Witch's Coven, the Emperor's Coven. You're just being a distraction. I don't want to be your friend and all that kind of stuff. But my goodness, did she drastically change when she became more closer to Luz, where she realized about how love, especially from a person who truly cares about you, does not make you completely worthless.
Mm-hmm. So so you can see where both characters are in this conversation, and this is the thing. Some of Hunter's interactions I really just kind of like really dislike the fact that he's like basically pushing people's buttons, and like I get that he's not in a good situation himself. I'm not saying that. So he's totally not unjustified for the way he's acting, but. I think basically kind of being manipulative with like saying like, oh, maybe Luz doesn't love you as much as you think you do. It's like, that's a bit of a dick move, really. So.
I mean, I guess he never really got like true love and affection from anyone. I mean, the only one he ever knew about in terms of family was Emperor Bellos, and we already know how manipulative he is. So it's like, trust no one, even if they seem like they're nice. Just don't trust anybody because you never know if they're going to stab you in the back.
Has Hunter ever never seen like any girls like in the Emperor's Coven at all? Like
other than Kikimora and the captains, which are always constantly wearing their masks, it's like I don't think so.
I'm just really surprised. But
I mean, I think that the interesting fact about that Hunter was still kind of like thinking of Luz in kind of like a negative way, but at the same time, he sort of understands on what makes Luz such a very special person. But at the same time, he kind of like gives me Zuko vibes, in which even though that he does understand that, the Avatar has to be the one to bring all the balance into the world, he still needs to capture him because he wants to make his dad proud. It's kind of like the similar situation. He needs to make Emperor Bellos proud and still feel relevant, so he's willing to get the Titan's blood. And then later on, we find out about that the key that we've been seeing throughout this entire series has Titan's blood in it and is able to open the portal door, which is why that Emperor Bellos needed the Titan's blood in the first place, so that he can be able to craft a key to open up the door. And we also find out earlier in the episode that apparently Emperor Bellos has been in the human world before, so that even brings up more questions about the whole Philip Wittebane thing.
Yeah, I probably imagine that. That it would bring up a lot of questions, and I would like to know a bit more about actually what he was doing there. And in fact, does that even like give him more clues that he's actually Philip Wittebane himself? You
I
know.
mean, if that's the case, I mean, he was able to like live for a good 400 years, looking like he's in his 50s.
Well, Entangled, the antagonist in there was keeping herself alive, through brushing hair. So
That is
it
true.
is
Mother Gothel
plausible.
was able. It is true. Mother Gothel was able to live for who knows how long because of the flower, and then the flower was crushed into the herbs to, heal the mother, and then got over to Rapunzel, where she was able to use the hair that had the remnants of the flower. Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, we just still don't know a lot of things yet, but I'm sure that we will know sometime in the later episodes of the season. But in the meanwhile, we do get to see like parallels of Hunter doing anything that he can to please Emperor Bellows, and again, giving me major Zuko vibes, in which he's willing to do anything to help, regain his honor and get back to the throne and make his father proud. So, again, going into like the last episode of the second season, in which there were, Katara and Zuko were trapped in the cave, and Katara was able to trust Zuko, but then Zuko stabbed everybody in the back by teaming up with Azula. So it's very similar, in which like Amity was able to trust Hunter when Kikimora was just about to go into where they were at, and he doesn't have his staff, and he's tied up with the abomination goo that Amity carries in her satchel. Another reference to Avatar, where Katara carried water in her satchel. I mean, it makes a lot of sense because they're both voiced by Mae Whitman. And so she decides that, she's going to play off loose and trust him. But then, of course, he decides to run off and go over to a minecart and try to see if he can get the Titan's blood before anybody else.
Yeah.
And
then Amity gets captured, and then she ends up getting thrown down the hole herself. So,
geez, that was really dark. Like, the captain was like, I'm bored, and just throws her in. It's like, damn. Like, usually in like these kind of situations, they'll just be like standing there and keeping an eye, and then Amity would try to find a way to escape. But no, it's like, pfft, screw that. We're running out of time. Let's just throw her into the ditch that King and Ida fell into when they saw the fool's blood, thinking it was Titan's blood. And then Hunter tries to warn them, and they didn't listen to him, because why would they have any reason to trust him?
yeah. This is the thing that's going to play out, I think, in the show. Like, why should we trust Hunter? Why? Like, if I had Hunter like tied up, and like he says to me, yeah, I need you to untie me because I need you to help me, and I need some kind of like something or other, and I heard about like everything else, I would basically just pick up a sword and just cut his head off. I really would, and be kind of like, save me the trouble,
Well, I don't know if I would go that far, but Luce was able to trust him when, she helped Hunter out with like, taking care of Kikimora, and then finally when the Palismen were just about to, be free from her clutches and from the hand dragon, and then she was able to allow Luce to escape and the Palismen to escape. So I think that there is some. I think there's something deep down inside that Hunter is willing to trust, people other than just Emperor Bellows.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. So, in regards to, going further forward, Ida finally manages to talk with the Owl Beast, and manages to, so she negotiates her way into basically becoming, the Harpy Lady, and so she's ends up having like a whoop-ass moment in that, and but then Amity makes her way over to what we think is the Eclipse Lake, but it's completely dried up, and Hunter is not taking it too well.
He's digging his own grave.
Yeah, he is psychologically traumatized. He really is.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's part of me that wonders if he is actually redeemable as a character after seeing that, but who knows. So.
Well, and then we also find out that the Tamagotchis that Amity was receiving after she was having doubts about Luce, and then King decides that, okay, this doesn't look right. I'm going to actually turn it on its side. And then she sees, instead of, I need the result, otherwise I break up with you, it says, you are rad. And then there was like a whole bunch of other messages, such as, fool's blood bad, are you okay? Come home. And then the first one that we saw when the episodes first started, and Amity didn't understand what it said. I looked it up, and it says you are pretty.
Yeah.
It's so adorable. Oh my goodness, I love them so much.
Yeah, I love this ship. So, but then after that, we get this really cool fight scene. That takes place between...
amazing, by the way. And going back into the parallels I was mentioning about Adventures in the Elements. I mean, it's been over a year since that episode aired, where Amity was just learning how to use magic, and now she's able to do magic like a boss. Like, oh my goodness, she has progressed so far. Oh, and by the way, I guess we forgot to mention this. Amity has a Palismen now, and it's a white cat named Ghost. It's based off of Dana Terrace's own cat.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm interested to see how... I was listening to Morgan Terry's reaction, and shout out to Morgan Terry, by the way. And she's who's on 20,000 subscribers, I believe, at the moment. So
So congratulations, Morgan.
Yeah. Well, how long do you need to be? I mean, how many subscribers do you need to get like a thing for? Like a plaque from YouTube.
Okay. 100,000 subscribers for a silver plaque. 1 million subscribers for a gold plaque. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe,
we need to get Morgan Terry 100,000 subscribers. So
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's the next goal. But so with that, we end up with this really cool fight scene. Amity kicks ass. By the way, she makes herself an iron fist and just punches Hunter in the chest, and he's kind of like, I thought if they were going to do that, I thought like Hunter was going to go flying backwards, and like he kind of like it seems just kind of like didn't really he took it pretty well. So, but yeah.
And in the episode that we talked about escaping expulsion, where Alador was talking about, be careful, Dahlia. I think we should let her be friends with Luz because she's getting stronger. She might even become a head coven one day. And we saw her defending herself from the Abomaton, which is fine. But man, did she really pick herself up, considering that she was able to do all of these abilities with her abomination, and she was able to go up against Hunter, who is a child prodigy. So she was able to go up against him, and with Hunter using his Palismen for the first time, and it's using real magic as opposed to artificial magic, but he was able to pick it up really quickly. And yeah, the fight scene was just of equals, but for completely different reasons. I mean, again, with Amity, just learning how to do magic a year ago when we saw the episode, and then her continuously training and getting herself better, is like, wow, she's able to go up against a prodigy like the Golden Guard. She has really progressed as a character. I think that, in my opinion, with everything that we've seen so far, she is the most well-developed character in the entire series. We saw her going from this, like this stick in the mud who's just constantly trying to make her parents proud and trying to uphold the Blight reputation and just being a bully, to somebody who's loving and compassionate and somebody who's willing to trust people and somebody who is really strong with their magic. She has come so far.
Mm-hmm. So we end up with the Amity with the key in her hand, and she has to hold it. By the way, another dick move on Hunter's behalf. I say, oh hey, we know where you live, and we know where your human lives, and we'll come after you if you don't give us the key. So Amity smashes the key in her hand, unknowing to Hunter, and then hands it over. And she, by doing that, she actually ends up soaking up the Titan blood that's in the key into her glove. So. Yes,
and that is going to be really helpful, considering that they know how to build the portal door because they have the blueprints from Philip Boydebane on his journal. So they're thinking about maybe using that Titan's blood for something else. So even though that they lost the key and they lost the portal door, they can be able to build up another one with the tiny remnants of the Titan's blood that they have.
Here's the thing about this. I really hope in the beginning of the next episode, Luz comes out and says, oh hey, I was able to rebuild the key after the one you lost, but no big deal. Like, I really hope it's not going to be the fact that, oh hey, we got the portal ready. Okay, Amity, where's the key? And she says she doesn't have the key, and that kind of builds a rift between the two. Like, after all the building up that we got to do that, there's part of me that believes they may go in that direction. I don't know.
I hope that they don't.
I hope they don't either, but that's in the back of my mind right now.
But then again, that's not like loose to think about. I mean, I'm sure that she'll, be really forgiving that Amity was trying her very best to defend herself from Hunter getting the key. I mean, she was almost about to cut his...
I hope that they don't go on like this liar reveal bit where it's kind of like, oh, hey, have you got the key? It's like, oh, well, I kind of like lost it, but then ends up realizing that the reason why she lost it is because she gave it to the Golden Guard, and then there's like a misunderstanding, and then, shenanigans.
I hope that doesn't happen. But I think that with Amity, she was almost about to cut his throat with the abomination.
I imagine that. She was ready to kill Hunter.
Yes, she was ready to kill him.
And I'm not surprised. Like, I would be too.
I know you would. Yes.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm sorry if I'm a bit bloodlust in in these discussions about characters I don't like. But I come from Doom Eternal. Okay. I spend most of my time disemboweling most of my enemies, okay? So, they get home, and we realize that in order for Ida to own the Harpy Lady, she needs to eat like 9 moles or something like that.
Yeah, not 9 voles, yes.
Voles, yeah, which, if you don't know what they are, they're kind of like little mouse kind of like things.
Yeah, they're kind of like little mice, hamster things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
here's an interesting thing. Maybe in the next vision that Ida has, like when she's with the owl beast, maybe the owl beast actually talks. Maybe.
Ooh, oh man! Again, going into Naruto vibes all over again. This is very similar to like the nine-tailed fox that's inside Naruto, where he finally speaks to him about being trapped in there for so long, and then at first the nine-tailed fox hated him so much because his father trapped him inside of him, and so then as time went on, when they started becoming stronger because they need to be able to defend against the Jinchuriki, it's like, okay, we're gonna pair up, we're gonna work together so that we can be able to save the world from the entire world being covered up in this huge illusion. So sure, so I'm hoping at some point that would be the case where Ida and the Owl Beast is able to work together, and maybe we get to learn more about the backstory, because from what we saw in the last episode, the Owl Beast was almost captured by the Collector, and then it turned into the scroll, which Lilith eventually used to curse Ida. So yeah, again, there's a lot of parallels that we need to know about.
Yeah, I really want imagine if they did like a bit where it's like Ida and like the owl beast are kind of like an odd couple. It's kind of like, where she'll say, oh, I want to do this today, but then Albie's is kind of like, like a Danny DeVito voice or something like that, oh, you always want to do this, but I want to do that. I just want them to have like a really, not a dysfunctional relationship, but kind of like one they are inadmissible in partaking in, not like they have a choice in it anyway. But yeah,
okay.
Mind you, in regards to the owl beast connection, I'm just wondering, I still wonder, is it still keep in mind we still don't even know what this collector guy is about.
No, we know nothing about the Collector. We know nothing about the identity of the Collector. We don't know if they're working for Emperor Bellos. We don't know if they're their own individual person, like a bounty hunter. Nothing.
There's part of me that believes that he might be a blight.
Really?
Yeah. Well, keep in mind, look at all the moons and the suns and things like that, and look at all the iconography that Amity and other people wear.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. So instead of going over to the Abomination, I guess maybe this particular blight was more into capturing.
Keep in mind, the blights are not Abomination. So keep in mind, Adalia is an oracle, and it's Alador who's the Abomination.
Oh, that's right, yeah, and Edric and Emra are illusionists.
Yeah, so they're kind of a mixture of different things.
Okay, fair enough. You're right, but yeah, that would be interesting, because we see Amity. She wears a she wears a crescent moon necklace now, and her shoe buckles are crescent moons, and the face of the Collector is a crescent moon. So yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe that is a blight, but until we know more information, we can only just leave it for speculation.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, going back to the episode, oh my goodness, I love the hug that Amity and Luz have. Doesn't it feel a lot more genuine than
it does feel genuine, especially since Luz finally recovered from the common mold. And
well, I mean, in comparison to other times we've seen hugs between characters, the way that they animated it was beautiful. It's like,
oh yeah.
You just feel
I mean, even before that, Amity was about to tell Luz, I have bad news, I lost the key. The moment that she walks in, Luz just immediately gives her a hug, saying, "I'm just so glad that my awesome girlfriend is okay," because that's when she finds out that the cave that the Eclipse Lake is in has fool's blood, and she was trying to warn Amity about it, and she was hoping that Amity doesn't get crushed by the fool's blood that caved in, because apparently Philip Wittebane had companions that went inside of the cave where Eclipse Lake was, and they didn't make it, and she was afraid that Amity was going to be losing her life as well.
Oh yeah. So, but that didn't happen. So, good times all around.
Yeah, but no. That hug was just absolutely genuine. And
yeah.
And this is the first time that Amity was hugging Luz, because we saw Luz hugging Amity many times, but like a friend hug. But this was like a genuine, oh, my awesome girlfriend is okay kind of hug. And oh man, it was just so incredibly sweet.
Yeah. So, we ended with the Titan blood, but then also we get a bit of a moment between Hunter and his Palismen, and the Palismen, because he seems to have used the, his staff, he seems to know now what the Palismen is actually telling him about. So they
remember, in order for you to know about your Palismen, you'd have to have a strong bond with them. Just like how, Ida and Albert have a strong bond. And now that I guess that, Hunter was using, the Palismen for good and even protecting the Palismen from Emperor Bellos, Now they have a bond that's strong enough to know that Hunter can be able to understand what the Palisman is saying, and the Palisman reveals his name, but we don't know it because we don't speak bird.
Yeah. So, but it looks like they've had like, if at least in the from what I can see in the continuity of the ending, like it looks like they had like a long conversation about it while he was walking back. So
Yeah, so that's pretty much it for that discussion of the episode.
Oh,
But
by the
we
way,
have
Hunter has the key, but only has half the Titan blood. So
yes, he does, and that's going to be major considering that now that practically that it has half of the Titan's blood, or maybe that the whole thing drips even before he gets home. We don't even know yet. Now that they have the key, they're not going to have the energy source that they need to open up the door. So yeah, this is going to be major coming up.
yeah. So next episode is gonna be yesterday's lie, and
Oh my goodness, this is going to be massive, by the way. If we saw from the plot synopsis where Luce thinks that she found a way home and is not, sure about what she's going to see, it's like, okay, what's going to happen?
well, keep in mind, like, there's two bits of the trailer that we haven't seen yet. There's the bit where Luz is like, rising up from like whatever she's kind of like fallen into, and then there's the other bit where her mom seems to be maybe suspecting maybe that the whatever's in the clone of whatever it is that's is taking on the image of Luz may not actually be her daughter. So I suspect,
wow.
yeah. So like, because you remember, like, there was all like she was in that room and like she was staring at something and while looking at her phone. So maybe there might be a possibility that maybe the portal might open for like maybe a little bit, and maybe it might be enough for like Luz's messages to get out and go towards her phone, and maybe when she sees them and sees all the videos, maybe her mom might suspect that the person in her house is not Luz.
Yeah, because they have a little bit of the Titan's blood, so maybe they can be able to use it to, make something, maybe just enough so that they can be able to get the messages out.
Yeah, so, plenty to look forward to in the next episode, and, this is what we're talking about compared to Monsters at Work,
We took, like, double the time to talk about it. I mean, we just spent, like, 5 minutes just talking about something that happened for 36 seconds.
Yeah. Okay,
but
people.
Yes, but next week's episode, I mean, even though it's going to be the last one for this season, but, oh man, it's going to be a big one.
So we're having a season hiatus, yeah.
Yeah, I know, but for this particular season it's going to be a massive one. I can feel it.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, let's move on to the Owl House Season 2, Episode 10, Yesterday's Lie. This episode went very quickly for us. It really did. Like, they packed so much into this. And so let's go as slowly as we can through this. So the establishing shot that we get at the very beginning of this is obviously Luz's mom, Camila, and also we get the doppelganger Luz. Also in this as well, and she's throwing out all the stuff and saying, "I want a new thing." So immediately she basically goes for like boo, hiss, getting not really getting the audience on her side. Pretty much this doppelganger Luz, which we kind of established already. But then how should we deal with it? Should we do like this chronologically, or should we do this character by character?
Well, I think that we kind of should do a combination of both because there is a lot to unpack. So first, let's do it chronologically.
Right. So, in regards to the character, so we are introduced to Luz's doppelganger, who is existing in this world. And we find out that apparently she's not as evil as we were led out to believe, and apparently she is known now as V, but was known as Number 5, and apparently was some kind of science experiment from the Emperor's Coven.
Well, actually, she was a basilisk. So, yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting take on a basilisk. For those who don't know, a basilisk is kind of like a snake that is able to, kill off people by petrifying them. And it's kind of like in Harry Potter almost. But this interpretation of a basilisk is that, she's a shapeshifter. And she was actually captured by Emperor Bellos because basilisks can be able to absorb magic. So we learned about this in a season 1 episode called The First Day, where it was Luce's first day at Hexside. And she met up with all the other characters who didn't have a sense of, okay, I want to go into this particular coven. And so she learned about the basilisk where they were able to absorb magic, and she was captured by Emperor Belos because, she was going to be used for this particular experiment. And
well, no,
for
if you
some
remember, they apparently these creatures were extinct, and apparently the Empress Coven brought them back. I think that's
yeah.
So basically, she was captured as basically to be an experiment and figure out why if they could basically be some use to them. So, but then they
Yeah, I
escaped.
mean, the basilisk can be able to absorb magic, and I think that that's going to be huge with the day of the Day of Unity, which is why I think that they were experimenting with them in the first place.
Yeah,
And so,
I mean, did they still? Was it established that they still had some of these, these basilisks, or from what I gather, V was like doing like some kind of secret nim thing, getting them all to escape. So.
yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, she was able to escape from Emperor Belos, and she, from the very first time that we saw the memory of her meeting up with Luz. And she said, okay, when I first saw you, then I went over to the portal door and I disguised myself as you, not knowing that I was going to be meeting up with your mother. And I decided to stay with her ever since because I felt a sense of belonging where I never felt that before. And it's like, wow, this happened from the very beginning.
Yeah. So, I want to go back to the first episode, actually, and, I'm sure I saw that character. We're walking
I'm sure we
around.
did.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. It's crazy. It's like, it's kind of like an As Told by Ginger situation. It's like when you first see Noelle Sussman, it's like, yeah, she was in the background the entire time and nobody noticed her until they brought it up in a season 2 episode. And this is a Noelle Sussman situation. I'm sure if we watch the first episode again, I'm sure we'll find her somewhere.
Yeah, well, we've got Disney Plus, so we can check it out. But yeah, so by the way, just a quick shout out to that. If you have Disney Plus as well, they're going to be releasing the season 2A episodes on there too. So get watching. So if you can do,
yeah.
Just also, so we get to that bit, and so, but then we flash. This is actually kind of the first cold open that we get where it kind of flashes forward. So then we kind of after that, we kind of flash back. So we're back at the Boiling Isles. They finally built the portal door. It's pretty much the same way that it's kind of Homer built his barbecue in that Simpsons episode. And I only remember that because of the memes, by the way. I barely watch The Simpsons now since the older seasons, but. I look at that and I think, this is not going to work properly. You can just tell from the very beginning of it. So, they Gary's mod it together and pretty much Ida powers it up with her bathtub, her mobile bathtub that she has, and then it all combines together and we get this really wonky looking door. So you can easily tell it's not gonna work the same way as that. And you know what? I still go on the premise of how I know teleportation technology from Half-Life, which is that it's not just point A to point B. You need an intermediary in the middle to kind of like a border world like Zen to combine everything together in order to make the portals to work. So I think what Luz ended up falling into in that door was a border world, which is the reflection realm. So, which you can see, which has this unique ability to see reflections in different mirrors and things like that. So, which is kind of unique, really, because you can see. I'm guessing that this can also transcend other dimensions. So, any particular for reflections you can see people in, pretty much.
Yeah. So the only way you can be able to see the person that you want is by calling their name. So the first time that she tried it out, when she was looking around saying, where's Ida, King, and Hooty? And then this huge 3D sphere came out, and then she became the reflection of the cube. This huge cube came out, and then she became the reflection of the window from the owl house. And so then she decided, oh, that's how it works. And so she's going to call her mom, but it's all the way on top. And so she gets frustrated, and so she starts calming down and counting to 5, which then brings up the next cube, which just so happens to be the doppelganger Luz. And then we find out that her name is 5, or V, as she calls it, which is really clever, by the way, because it's the Roman number 5, and it's a V. Mm-hmm. So, and then when I first heard the voice, I immediately knew who it was. It's Michaela Dietz, aka Amethyst from Steven Universe.
I was about to point that out, actually. So, they have this back and forth. By the way, V runs out the door and jumps out the first story window, which how she didn't break something is another thing, but I digress. So she ends up running into the old house, and there's all these traps everywhere, and so she ends up falling into one of them, and so Luz follows her through to another another mirror in the house, which is a portable mirror, and she frees her and is able to say, oh hey, well if you're here, that means my mom doesn't mean that I knows that I'm missing. I'm still in the Boiling Isle, so she decides to help V out. So, this is interesting, though, because V has actually led, like, this is the one thing I was a bit worried about when I was, like, seeing all of this, is, like, there's one despised episode of The Simpsons, which is The Principal and the Pauper, and, like, I really thought, like, we were going to get, like, one of those situations where it's like, oh, this is your life, I was just keeping it warm for you, but no. V has actually been appreciative of, like, being in the house with Camila. She even calls her mom. Like, out of respect of, like, the fact that she's taking care of her this entire time. She even went to camp. And also, this kind of, like, dispels another one of my theories that just seems to kind of, like, keep dying a death, pretty much. I must have a graveyard full of these theories now. Like, just, like, all just, like, with their own tombstones. Like, it's just, so, the camp apparently is not evil. Apparently it was an innocent place where, V actually went to because, Camila got the day off, so they spent some time with one another, and they got to obviously, but obviously Camila's none the wiser. She still thinks it's Luz being crazy, and then she goes to the camp, makes friends there, still has friends in Grave in. So by the way, we also now know that the place is called Gravesfield.
Yes.
This place, so Gravesfield, Connecticut. I don't know if that's a real place or not. We'll have to look it up.
But I don't think it is. It's very similar to like Gravity Falls, Oregon. It's like it's not a real place.
Yeah. So she makes friends with all these people, and she ends up getting these cards, which obviously has magic in them, and she wants to know where she can get more of them because she needs magic. And but also, during all of that as well, we learn that Ida apparently has been making a nuisance of herself before the portal door closed because she got herself banned from a cafe in the local area as well, and apparently some people do know her.
So. I mean, it's not too surprising. I mean, she's had the portal door for years. I mean, we even knew that she ran away from home at a very young age. So I wouldn't be surprised by using the portal door. She's able to, like, maybe, like, on and off over the years, live in the human realm and, watch movies in theaters and, cause a bunch of crazy mayhem. So, yeah, she goes by the name Marilyn when she's in the human world.
Which
so
is interesting because apparently the wife that Stan Pines had in Gravity Falls for, like, 6 hours apparently was also called Marilyn. So they're now deciding to... The fans have decided amongst themselves to say that that's what makes Ida and Hell House and Gravity Falls basically canon, that they would know each other now. Because apparently Stan Pines was married to Ida at one point for 6 hours.
Okay, so apparently at one point Ida went over to Gravity Falls. Okay.
So that might be a good possibility. So
you know what? I wouldn't be surprised. And also like all the other pictures in that background, including with Ida, some people say that the guy with the beard is Steven Sugar, who also is a background artist and is Rebecca Sugar's brother. And some other picture that's like covered with like the curly hair and the glasses. Some people even argue that might be Luz Batista, the storyboard artist, and who's Luz is named after. So. I don't know if it's true or not. Let me know in the comments if it is. But anyway, we do know that, V is trying to locate these cards, which, by the way, we do recognize these cards. These are the same cards that Truffles and Ida were playing with. And, this is when Ida just got rid of them because she was getting too addicted to it. And so then we find out that there was a person who was collecting all of these things, and they go over to like the Historical Society. And so we meet up with this guy named Jacob, who's the curator. And so he's talking about, are you interested in these cards? It's really popular with the kids. And then he, decides to help, V out. But then she looks around and then she sees like this huge chart of like all of these connections with like Ida and the demon realm and all that kind of stuff.
But even before we get to that point, you get this point where she looks in another reflection and starts talking with Luz, and then she basically starts berating her, saying like, how could you leave for the Boiling Isles when you had such a great life here?
Yeah, and this is something that we really need to talk about. So before this episode came out, a lot of people really, really hated Camila, saying, oh man, why do you have to be so mean to Luz? She was just being expressive. Why did you have to send her away to this normal camp? It's like, why couldn't you just accept her for who she was?
Well, I would like to push back even that on that. Let's pretend that yesterday's lie didn't happen for a moment, and let's just focus on Camila. She's on her own. She has a pretty difficult job. By the way, we actually find out in this episode she's a veterinarian, not a nurse. So, everyone thought she was a nurse. So, at one point, before yesterday's lie even happened, she's a single mother. She has a really difficult job. I can probably imagine being a nurse is probably not the most pleasant. Also, probably very antisocial as well, because she probably has to do a load of overtime, I could probably imagine. So, doesn't get to spend as much time with Luz as she would like. as I could probably imagine. But so I mean, like I could sympathize with Camila because she's going through the same struggles that every single mom would probably have.
Yeah.
So it's in a way I felt like the criticism was quite unjustified. I think because she couldn't be like 24/7 in not to say that she should be, but she wouldn't be as much spending time with Luz as much as then. So no wonder Luz is kind of like going off the rails and like getting in trouble at school and stuff. So so in a way that's not in some way. I mean I can't really blame Camila for that. I really can't. And so, well, anyway, I'll get into that when we get into the final scene because that's intense. I'll tell you that.
We'll get to that. But but V makes a really valid point, saying, "Man, I wish I had your life because at least you had somebody who cared for you. Why would you run away from that?" And she does have a really good point. It's
Well, we'll get to that at the end of the episode, but kind of like continuing on. Then that's the point when we find out that this guy who's running the historical society is like some crazy conspiracy theorist who thinks that witches are sent from Mars to get the teeth out of people or something like something stupid like that.
Okay, so yes, very similar to Steven Universe, where we have a conspiracy theorist, where he's kind of like the Ronaldo of the show, where he's basically like documenting all of these things and trying to come up with some really weird reason on why all of this stuff is happening. So yeah, he has all of these magical artifacts. I mean, we saw the training wand, we saw pictures of Ida, and we saw various other things. So he knows that the demon realm exists, and he knows that demons exist. And so when V gets captured and turns back into the basilisk because she has no longer the amount of magic that she needs to transform back into Luz, then we have the situation where Luz needs to call her mom to rescue her. And I mean, V was almost about to give up, saying just try to get yourself to home as you can, don't worry about me, this is where my life is going to be. And this is where Luz shows her compassionate self, saying, no, even though that in normal situations I would be, kind of angry at you because, you essentially like took over with my mom, but in a way you kind of helped me, so I'm going to help you back.
Yeah.
So
But here's the thing about this, I mean, in regards to, the conspiracy theorist guy, I was really hoping that he was going to say, when he mentioned Mars, I was kind of like, oh my god, he's going to, talk about the Doom theory, there's demons on Mars, and, I thought they were going to, go into, the whole Doom story of, trying to get Arjun's energy or something like that, which would have been so cool, but no, I think he wouldn't have been ridiculous enough to get a laugh, so, I can see why they went with, you're trying to steal people's teeth, so, yeah.
Sure.
But, so, you can't blow a hole in the surface of the boiling isles. Right. So this V gets captured, and she is about to give up, and but then Luz decides to sit down with Camila, through her mobile phone, and say, "Hey, look, this is what happened. I'm stuck in this other dimension." And mind you, she pretty much sits down and goes through the entire story. Do you remember that? Have you and I watched Hot Fuzz?
We watched it together, remember?
Yeah, we did. So, we watched Hot Fuzz, and remember that bit where, Nicholas Angel is trying to talk to, his partner about, the whole conspiracy theory that he's put together, and, they go through, that whole montage, and, and so I like to think that probably that happened with, between Camila and Luz, and then Camila at the very end says, I'm quite, I don't know why you're getting me involved in your games, and, he's like, oh, it's it's kind of like that. Yeah, so it kind of reminds me of Hot Fuzz, which is kind of cool. So
yeah. So I mean, did you see the look on Camila's face when she heard about this? She almost looked a little bit relieved, because earlier in the scene where we saw that V was throwing away Luz's old stuff, the Great Witch Azura and the statue, and even the little tin swan, she was kind of upset, saying that, oh man, my daughter, I wanted her to change, but I didn't want her to lose her creativity. So when she's calling her saying, I'm trapped in the boiling isles, I need you to help me with this, and she's like, oh, okay, I'm glad that, even though you went to this camp and you're going to school, you haven't lost your creativity. So she was relieved that Luz was still able to create her creative side. And so she decided that she was going to play into this game by going over to the Historical Society and, talking to this curator. His name is Jacob, by the way. So she goes over to Jacob, talks to, Camila, and, she, for some reason, Jacob thinks that Camila is part of the government or something. And
of course he
when
does.
she mentioned, Yeah, of course he does. She was mentioning about I want to see this basilisk, and then he takes her over there, and then that's when she sees V, and then she realizes this isn't a game, this is real.
Yeah. So, but she's freaked out by V, the fact that she was this playing Luz the entire time, and so but Luz tries to convince her mother to say, hey, she's a demon, but she's friendly and she doesn't mean any harm or anything like that. And so, surprisingly, she turns around and says, okay, well, I'm really glad that you were in my house this entire time, and he tears up, and I guarantee you, a lot of other people did as well.
Yeah, and you probably wonder where Luz gets it from.
Yeah, you do. And so, by the way, so we get this scene between Jacob and Camila, and so Camila tries to play along with the fact that she's part of the government. She says, "You know what? I'm not." She just drops this. You know what? I'm not into this creative shit. Just picks up a slipper and just smacks him in the face, and it's like,
yeah. You know that whole two lies and a truth thing that Dana Terrace posted up on one of her live streams? It was crap. Everything happened. Gus getting her growth spurred, Hooty leaving the owl house, and Camille beating somebody up. It all happened.
Yeah, I guess you probably posted that at that point, and then they'll kind of say, yeah, let's just put them on in anyway. So, we get over that scene. So V's rescued. They bring her back to the house, and Luz is now able to kind of use the rain to reflect herself and be able to get somewhat be able to talk properly with the characters. So V eats the cards, and I assume probably turns back into Luz, probably just to kind of hide her identity and continue on the fact that stop everyone kind of saying where's Luz. So
right.
She's doing that. And, but then you think that you think that Camila is oh hey, she's in the know now and she's playing cool with it, but no, she's tearing up and she's terrified about what she's just been through, and that's such a natural reaction that she had. And then we get the bit which I'm still debating whether this would have been something that the Luz character actually would have done. I felt that this was just a bit. I don't know whether it was a bit contrived or whether it's whether it's just playing into a Neo Geo versions. I don't know, but she kind of let slip. I'm really glad that she went to the Boiling Owls when she had the choice to go back home, and I don't know whether that was misinterpreted or whether that was oh my goodness, well, however you want to play it, it was a terrible thing to say.
Well, here's the argument that I would point out. When the line before this, where Luz was trying to come up with the proper discussion about, okay, this is what happened, Mom, and then she says about how she's going to try to get herself back home. And let's think back to episode 1, Luz, where even though that she was kind of compassionate, she was a scatterbrain and went all over the place. But now she's able to think things more clearly, and she's able to get her plan situated. And even Camila herself pointed out, "Wow, Luz, you've really matured since I last saw you." And it's true. We talked about how Amity had grown over the past season. Luz has grown tremendously. She is no longer the scatterbrain and the crazy over-the-top goofball that we saw her in. She is a lot more restrained now. But then she mentions about the Boiling Isles has changed for the better of me. And she didn't even mention about Ida. She didn't mention about Willow or Gus or Amity or anybody. So she assumed that she was staying there by herself, and that's why Camila was broken, saying you chose this. And she was heartbroken because she felt that, the fact that she was going to be sent over to this normal camp, and the fact that she was going to be, seen and trying to be normal to kind of not get in trouble in school and try to fit in with other people. Because remember, before this, Luz didn't have any friends. So Camila was just trying to do her best, and she felt that when hearing about that, being at the Boiling Isles was the best thing that happened to me. This was kind of like a wake-up call saying, maybe I'm the one who's being wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have pushed you away. But Luz is no, that's not true. I love you. It's just that this whole situation became a lot more complicated than realized. I mean, remember, she kind of had to stay in the Boiling Isles, not on her own volition, because she had to give the door to Bellows when she was trying to save Ida from being petrified. So that whole situation became kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that at some point she would have came back, but still, it's just that things just got a little bit more complicated than realized. So I understand where you're coming from, that maybe the line should have been said, but in a way, I think that the Boiling Isles was a good thing for Luz. It's just that maybe she shouldn't have stayed there as long as she did.
Yeah, there's part of me that believe that she hasn't told the entire story, or maybe had the chance
She
to do
hasn't.
so. Like
She hasn't.
she hasn't told about Ida, she hasn't told about King, she hasn't even told about Amity. Like, I mean,
Nope.
how the hell is she going to explain that she's in a relationship with a witch? Like,
Yeah, and also let's mention about the promise.
yeah, and so yeah, so I could probably imagine she said this out of stress. I could probably imagine, like, she felt like her mother was crying her eyes out, and so she ended up making that promise, which is like, don't make a promise you can't keep. Like, I mean, there's a few ways I could see that playing out in the entire show. So, one, it's going to be Luz is going to do a bit of a flip. I think we're going to see her, starting to kind of like drift away. I think from some of our characters, even she may even break up with Amity. That's another thing. Yeah, like like it's not right now. What they have is just a crush at the moment. Like it's just they're kind of like they are going steady, I guess you could say. But I wouldn't say it's here's the thing. Also, Dana says that she's not focusing too much on Lumity. So if anything, it's just a thing that they have for one another, and it's not something that is going to play very seriously in the show. So likelihood is we might see some drama in regards to that. She might also have some conflicts with Ida and also King too. And as because King's got his own destiny that he needs to look at as well. Because if there's anything that the concept art goes on to, if you remember, like there was a bit where King is like amongst like other demons like look like him, and they're trying to like cook Ida and Amity in a pot. If you remember that for that concept art, so there might be that too, and so he might start drifting away from her and Ida and things like that. And the one thing I think that might happen though is that she might drift away from everybody, and then she ends up going back. But there's still like the danger of like the Day of Unity, and like Bella's trying to like combine both the human realm and the demon realm together. So like maybe that still plays out, and like all the craziness happens. Like we might even see like we might even see like Empress Coven scouts, parading around outside in the streets in Graves in Connecticut, causing mayhem. Like the whole world's in panic, and like you have Luz who's just there, who's made a promise to her mother that she wouldn't do anything and she wouldn't go back. But then Camila turns around and says, Luz, you had to do something to fix this. And I know that you can do it. And so Camila might turn around and say, look, I know you made a promise to me, but, look at how the world is. Like, the Emperor's Coven is literally on our front lawn. Like she pulls the curtain back and there's like Steve, like parading around with like with a staff. Like he said, okay, I believe you need to do something now. And so, and that's how, so one badass thing I would really like to, I'd like to see Camila go through like, an Ash from Evil Dead kind of like, thing. Like, I'm not talking about her, welding a 12-gauge shotgun and having a chainsaw for a hand. I'm not talking about that. But, I'd like to see like, oh, hey, Luz, I need you to go back to the Boiling Isles and fix all this and save the world, and don't worry, I'll come with you. And maybe they both get trapped in the Boiling Isles and they both live out their lives out in the Boiling Isles, maybe. I don't know. Like, maybe that'd be a good way to end the show. But
yeah, well, we'll definitely wait and see. But before we go over to that last bit, there's something that we missed. So going back into the scene where Jacob was describing about the history of Gravesfield, he was talking about how it was a peaceful, little town around the 1600s, but then two brothers were being confronted by a witch, and then they were never seen again. So, is this Philip Wittebane, and does he have a brother?
The theory that's currently going around at the moment is that the brother might be Hunter might be the reincarnation of Philip Wittebane's brother.
Wow.
This
is huge, by the way.
Yeah, this is a show that keeps on giving.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that, and also the fact that you were just saying earlier about that. Yeah, the direction that the Owl House might be going in terms of like Luz making the promise to her mom to go home, and maybe she'll have to distance everybody. I mean, even Dana pointed this out, that this is going to be a darker season, and we just only saw like the first half of the season where it's a lot lighter. And it's true, like the earlier seasons were definitely a lot lighter, and they were like slowly delving into more serious things. But now that we're going over to the second half, a lot of people are saying this is where things really get started.
Yeah, and that kind of worries me a little bit because, like, what we've been exposed to so far is, like, unfortunately, I really do think that Dana, I think, at some points, I think needed to kind of, like, let up a little bit and say, okay, let's just, like, have... I mean, I'm not saying that you should do filler episodes, I'm not saying that at all, but, I mean, like, has there been an episode where someone hasn't cried in this season?
Jeez. I mean, King cried, Hooty cried, Ida cried, Luce cried, Amity cried. Oh my god. I mean,
everyone's crying in this season. And there's not an episode where it just kind of lets up. Like, why not just have like a kick-ass season where where and have some kind of like progression in it. Like right now, I just feel like, actually, I lie. I think wasn't Eclipse Lake? I don't think anyone cried in that, as far as I'm aware, unless I'm wrong.
I'm trying to think.
I mean, he had a freak out. It was digging his own grave. I mean,
I mean, there was an existential crisis, sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but as far as I'm aware, this show. I mean, I gotta be honest. The final scene out of all of this, and this is a really kind of haunting image to leave off. Is I'm just gonna go and say it. Luz breaks the fourth wall in this. Like, I get the feeling that when she looked at the camera and when she looked at, like, you can see like all the emotion in her face, you can kind of feel like she's kind of like, trying to translate that to the viewer, to the audience, which is like, that's okay when you're like trying to like do like an off message or something like a PSA or something like, and stuff like that. So you talk to the viewer about something like the characters want to interact with, like on a level like that. But to do it within the show, the context of the confines of the show, I just think when that happened, I can kind of like. I just see it in the eyes of a Disney executive, for us, the Owl House fans. I think for like the hardcore fans, that could probably be like, oh wow, that's a really like, storytelling kind of like, a really natural emotion to have to like, transmit that to like the person who's looking on the other side of the screen. But for a Disney executive, it's kind of like, I don't know, like I just feel like it'd be something that you would leave for like a lot later on in the show. Like, to do it now, I think it kind of makes me feel like you can see that all her emotion in her face and, like, see where, like, this is not going to go in a very good direction. I can just see a Disney executive saying, like, yeah, we need to cut season 3 in half.
Yeah, jeez, this is gonna be harsh, man. Like, I mean, this is gonna be how people felt about Steven Universe all over again, in which, like, oh man, after the trial, after Steven was called in, for the actions of his mother, what's gonna happen next? And then we had like this hiatuses going on, so it's like, yeah, go through like one emotional gut punching moment after one emotional gut punching moment.
Yeah, but I can kind of see why Disney kind of like are probably feeling very nervous about the Owl House at the moment. Because, like, apparently, if it gets darker than this, I mean, like, where the hell are we going? And also on top of that as well, like, and by the way, I'll talk about this because Morgan Terry has pretty much put this on a YouTube video, so I'm going to talk about it too. Do you know she had to miss a day off work for this episode?
Really?
Yeah, because she just felt too emotionally, she just felt too emotional about this particular, about what happened to, like, go into work. Like,
wow.
That's not good for a show. I'm sorry. Like, I've got to be hypercritical about that because, like, if you are doing that to the people who view your show, you're not doing a service to your audience. You're doing a disservice to them. These particular shows. Keep this in mind. Like, it's a Disney television show. Like, I get that it's it's the Owl House. I get that, and I get that it's like supposed to be pushing the boundaries, and I don't disagree with that. But I think when you have people like you have people like crying out no and like, oh my god, why is this happening? And we have like people doing reaction videos and they're crying their eyes out. Like on shows, like, I don't know, I just feel that's wrong in some way. It's just
I don't know what to say about that particular stance about like people leaving for work to kind of like go through that. But if a show is making you feel something, then I think that is a testament of how good it is.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm not saying that's wrong, but I don't know, like I just it's I don't know, I just have some kind of like moral and maybe we could probably have a discussion about this, like as a particular topic on the show sometime. But I don't know, like the type of effect it is having on people. Like, I'm not saying it's not a good show. I'm saying it is a good show. It is a good show. But there's being a good show, and then there's like. I don't know. Then there's like the reaction of like what's happening, and also on top of that as well, I could probably see people, the higher ups in Disney, having a say on that too. Like
Well, I don't know, but all I know is that the episode definitely leaves you on a heart-punching note, saying, okay, we need to have Luce try to find her way back home pretty quickly because, well, her mom is really, really missing her. And, just the fact that we were able to see that heartbreaking conversation where, she was even, like, Camila was doubting herself, saying, I haven't been a good supporting mother. It's my fault that you left. And Luce was trying to tell her, no, that's not it. And, we were getting really close to, like, getting some more information, but unfortunately the portal was running out. And so she couldn't really tell her all the things that she wanted to.
Yeah.
And so...
Mind you, like, the way things are going right now, I get a feeling that, she's going to be seeing her mom sooner rather than later. Because, like, if this... keep in mind, like, Hunter's got the key, and also got some of the Titan blood. So, there's a possibility that, Emperor Bellows might get his portal working before Luz does.
About whether how long that the portal will last is going to be a question, because we saw what a little bit amount of Titan's blood was able to do with the portal door that they were able to put together. So, I don't think it'll last very long. I don't know how long, the Day of Unity is going to last. I don't know if that's going to be an entire day, like literally a day of Unity, but... if whatever the Day of Unity is, if it's going to be like the awakening of the Titan or whatever, like combining, all the two worlds together, it's like there's definitely going to be like a particular amount of time that's going to be passing by. And the fact that not only do we have 11 more episodes left of season 2 and then 3 45-minute specials for season 3, and that's going to be it. Unless, of course, if there is going to be a season 4 or a spin-off series or what have you, if, the hashtags and the petitions go really, really well. But, yeah, it's going to be a matter of time before we do get to see, Luz trying to have another attempt of going over to the human realm. And, they're not going to have a lot of resources because, as we know, Titan's blood is really, really rare, and they just use one of the 5 fingers from Amity's glove, and they only have 4 attempts left.
Yeah. So, that's yesterday's lie, and it's... now, here's the thing about this. I'm not saying it's not a good episode, I am saying it is, but, wow, this... We're not going down a good place. I think it's I think all the stuff that we enjoyed, I think in the first half of season 2, I don't know, here's the thing about this, going into hiatus, maybe we could probably have this discussion now, maybe a little bit before we get into Monsters at Work. Going off yesterday's lie, where do you think we're going at the moment?
Okay, I think that we're definitely, it's going to be more focused on the Day of Unity. I think there's going to be a lot more focus on Emperor Bellows. I think there's going to be a lot more focus on the Philip Woodbane having a brother situation, and what was the story behind that. There'll definitely be a lot more focus on maybe there'll be a connection with King's past, and the whole Day of Unity kind of thing. And as for the fun episodes, maybe they'll start it off early on, but definitely a lot later on, they're really going to amp it up, just like they did with Adventure Time and Steven Universe, in which they really upped up the ante with okay, this is what's going to happen. We're going to have, the Great Gum War. We're going to have the fight between Yellow Diamond and White Diamond and Blue Diamond. We're going to have this huge, massive thing that's been built up throughout this entire time, and it's all going to come together. Whether it ends on a happy note or a sad note, I don't know. Knowing Dana Terrace, where she said that she doesn't even like the phrase happily ever after, I think it's going to be pretty bittersweet.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. She doesn't like happy endings, but I guarantee she's probably got a whole team full of writers probably trying to wrestle it off her. I can see that probably, but we'll see.
We'll definitely wait and see. But in the meanwhile, yes, we are going to be going through this hiatus. We probably won't even see episodes of the Owl House until at the earliest winter, at the latest spring. But that's okay for all of you fans, because we do have Amphibia coming up in October, and then there's of course the Ghost of Molly McGee, which is going to be coming out around the same time. So we got a lot of other things coming up, and also for Aaron and I, we have a lot of other things that we need to catch up with.
Yeah, mind you, like, here's the thing about this, like, we're going into hiatus, and we've left it at, like, Lou's looking emotionally traumatized, and then you've got the ghost of Molly McGee, and I'm not saying Amphibia's not, like, had its moment as well, but I can see Disney taking a look at those two shows within that hiatus point and, like, say, you know what, we've got all we need right here, like, also, there's no, just because they greenlighted season 3 doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen.
Well,
Like,
I mean, I don't know at this point in time, but let's just assume that it is going to happen. But if it does, it's definitely going to really up the stakes. I mean, even Dana mentioned that season 3 is supposed to wrap up everything. So
yeah.
if that's the case, then yeah, we're in for a long ride. But in the meanwhile, we do have this hiatus going on, and also like the codes like Rebecca Rose likes to do, where she was able to like decode all the things like the titles, where the first letter of every episode, it spells out a message. And so far with the 10 episodes that we have received, it says seek the key, and we already know about the key because that's the key to the portal door, and as of right now Hunter has it. And then we have the other codes, which if you look around in the episodes, there's like these Galilean letters that if you put it together, they spell out something. And so far this season, we have seething seas and puppet strings he no longer dreams of. And dreams of what? Puppet strings? We don't know. There's a lot of things that hasn't been answered yet, but in the meanwhile, we can only theorize, look back on some of the episodes to see if what we know now we can be able to piece together. And in the meanwhile, I'm definitely enjoying what we saw this season. It is a massive improvement over season 1 for sure. And we definitely need to sit down and we need to talk about what have been our favorite episodes of season 2 so far.
Yeah, I mean, like, not knocking on Hooty's door's probably like been probably my favorite episode because we thought it was going to be a filler episode and it turns out to like be a massive story driving episode. So I think that's kind of
I
how
definitely
I feel.
agree.
Yeah. So,
second favorite would definitely have to be Ida's Requiem because of just how amazing the animation was and the fact that we were able to be introduced with a new character with Rain, and it definitely like delved more into like how we got to see Ida, and I really liked it. I thought it was just like a great showcase of who Ida was.
all right, everybody. Well, until then, we'll see you all next week, and hope you all have a good week. Bye bye.
All right, bye.